Hey, good evening, everyone. Appreciate you gathering with us tonight. We've turned it up to 11, and we are here for two meetings tonight. We have a brief special called session with 3 items on which we'll vote, and then our regularly scheduled agenda-setting session with some items that we'll preview for January. Do need a roll call from the clerk.
Port.
Here.
Link.
Here.
Taylor. Wright. Fisher.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Culpepper.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Thornton.
Here.
Hamby. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate that. All right, we have 3 items of business tonight. We're going to have an opportunity for public input in just a moment on the 3 special called session items on which we'll be voting tonight. And then we will have an opportunity for public input during our agenda setting session on our consent agenda on each of the planning and zoning items, and then on old and new business. Terms of public input are essentially the same for all of these. It's a 3-minute opportunity. You see a light in front of the clerk. It will turn green when you begin speaking and provide your name and place of residence, yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and then red when your 3 minutes has concluded. And I'll thank you for your time with us tonight. So is there any member of the public who would like to speak to any of our special called session items tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll come to commission discussion, and we do need a motion for suspension of rules, given that this is their first reading. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Fisher and a second from Commissioner Link. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, first order of business is setting the qualifying fees for the 2026 general primary election as prescribed by law. You have an agenda report in front of you, and I'll entertain a motion regarding this item.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Thornton and a second from Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Thornton, any remarks?
No.
Commissioner Myers?
No, except for, yes, I guess there is one remark, and that's I look forward to that committee. These qualifying fees are based on the present salaries for the different positions, but we have that subcommittee, ad hoc committee that's going to get together soon, I assume, in January.
Yep. We're waiting on feedback from one of our unified governments across the state. Once we get
Okay.
that, we'll be able to meet.
Great. So I look forward to getting together in that committee that's going to look at salaries.
All right, any further remarks? All right, there's a motion, a second on the floor. Does this require an ordinance, Attorney Drake? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. The next 2 items are in response to continued food needs across the community. Fortunately, we do have some supplemental funds that we've accumulated due to diligent management from across the organization. And so I appreciate the manager and the entire staff putting us in a position where we have a little bit of funding that we can provide to provide some food security to our community as we head into the holidays. Item 2 is supplemental funding for the Foodbank of Northeast Georgia in the amount of $50,000. And I would entertain a motion regarding this item.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Link. I have a second from Commissioner Davenport. I'm going to have Attorney Drake read the ordinance right now.
An ordinance to amend the FY 2026 operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide funding for financial support of the Food Bank of Northeast Georgia and for other purposes.
All right, thank you, Attorney Drake. Commissioner Link, you made the motion. Any remarks?
I'm just grateful we're able to provide this assistance.
Commissioner Davenport?
Much needed. Just got a question for Bob. How much we have left in our contingency fund?
It's decreasing. It will be, if you take action tonight, at your next meeting, if you take action on the collective bargaining terms, which will take a chunk out of the contingency where this is coming from, and based on the previous one, we're pretty much tapped out of the contingency. Now, we also have, obviously, fund balance should we encounter any kind of emergency or anything that we need to deal with. But if my recollection was somewhere around 800,000 to 900,000 was what was in there to begin with, and then we've kind of chipped away at it as well. After this. Okay, so 133-ish in there, and then we still had a couple small ones, I think, in there, so probably around 100,000 still remaining in there.
We got to tighten our belt, y'all.
Commissioner Myers.
Yes, in both the agenda report for this item and the next one, it mentions that the staff are working to identify if ARPA funds could be reclaimed to offset the use of general funds, contingency funds. Do you have any status update on that? Or?
Not yet, because that'll be partly dependent on any of the reclaimed dollars that come back at the end of the year into January, and that would be a conversation we would have with you all. That could be a way in which we could replenish some of those dollars, but we don't know what that amount is until we get to that point.
So we also have to keep that in mind, thinking of the discussion from last month when we were talking about, oh yes, we'll use other funds for affordable housing from that fund. We'll have to make a decision there. I just want to add that I'm, very much in support of this, and that I think it's important to stop and pause for a moment as we approve this item and the next one to think about the effect of the federal actions on the residents of our community and our local government here that we're dealing with. Because it's not only the federal shutdown, delayed SNAP benefits, there's been a pause in support for Meals on Wheels, which is the next one. And then in the next item as well, so I don't repeat it, it mentions that there's been an end of the Senior Community Service Employment Program, which eliminated paid training for 181 older adults, including statewide, but including 43 in Clarke County. So there's a lot of local consequences to what's happening in the national news. But happy to support this.
Commissioner Thornton.
I was going to say, and we always talk about tightening our belt. I'm not going to mention my concerns about one particular organization because each of you got my emails, and I thank Bob for trying to explain what is going on. But when we give these agencies money and they're spent in ways that are not beneficial to the entire, and especially in these tight times. We cannot be doing doggone surveys over and over again in these tight times. So I think only one commissioner responded to me. I appreciate Bob responding to me, but all of you got the email, and nobody else even thought about it. So I'm going to support this, but when you talk, we got to tighten our belt and all of that in front of everybody, look who's spending the money. And Bob, I would also like to get the full budget for people in belonging. I would like to get that budget.
Well, Commissioner, obviously, this is pertinent to these particular food suppliers. And so,
Well, when we got to spend money out of another pot and people are not spending the money the way they should, it needs to be said. It's nowhere any other place in the agenda, Kelly, I could have said this.
anyone else before we take a vote? All right, we've got the ordinance read. Appreciate that, Attorney Drake. All in favor, please.
Did I read
You
this?
did?
Okay.
That's right. I know. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. 3, wash, rinse, repeat. Can I hear a motion?
So move.
Motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Davenport. Commissioner Link, any other remarks?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to echo some of Commissioner Myers' remarks about the federal government's rescission of funds and failure to take care of the people in this nation who are in the most desperate situations. And I'm grateful to live in a community where we're able to fill some of the gaps, and I hope the tides will turn in the coming years.
Commissioner Davenport, any follow-up?
No follow-up.
Have you read the ordinance, Attorney Drake.
Ordinance to amend the FY 2026 operating capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide funding for financial support of the Athens Community Council on Aging Meals on Wheels program and for other purposes.
Any further remarks? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Given that we are at the end of our special called session, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Got a motion from Commissioner Thornton, second from Commissioner Link. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to our agenda-setting session. We previously have examined these items, and right now, 1, 2, and 3 are on the consent agenda. Would any commissioner like to remove an item, 1, 2, or 3, from the consent agenda for discussion?
I wanted to take off 3 to ask a question, but then I'm fine with it going back
All
to
right.
consent.
No, I also was going to ask for 3.
All right, 3 will be on discussion. Anything else? All right, so members of the public, if you would like to speak to items 1 or 2, now is that magic time. Not all at once. All right, I'm going to move on. All right. We do have one planning item, so I'm going to relocate for this so that Planning Director Lonnie can come up and show you his pretty pictures.
What email was she referring to? Yeah.
It's a different thing. She understands that. 2 different.
All right, so we'll have a presentation from Planning Director Lonnie on this one item, public input on it, and then commission discussion.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Commission. We have this one item for 293 Hoyt Street. This item was heard by the Planning Commission at the December 11th, 2025 meeting, so that's a week after we normally meet with the Planning Commission. We have a little parade logistical thing we work through, so this was just last week that they heard this. The request is to rezone, I'm sorry, there we go. The request is to rezone a parcel from Park P to Commercial Downtown CD. In order to process that request, there is a vote that will be needed to change the future land use from government to downtown. As part of this application, there also needs to be a designation of the design area. Any sort of property that is in our commercial downtown zone also gets assigned to an overlay design area. The adjacent properties are in the Dougherty Street design area, so that is staff's recommendation. There was no concept plan submitted, but the intention here is for this to be associated with a mixed-use multifamily development. So this depicts the future land use, and the lot, sort of triangular-shaped lot, on the left in light blue, is currently government for future land use, and the request is to change it to downtown, which is consistent with all the other parcels adjacent to it, save for the Lay Park piece. Similarly, this is considered part of the Lay Park property, even though it is across Hoyt Street right-of-way and also the portion of Hoyt Street that is no longer right-of-way but is still used as a driveway. And this just gives you a little more context for the piece of property that we're talking about in relationship to downtown. It also shows you very faintly the design areas. They're in the green, on the light green, unfortunately. North downtown would be the design area that also is adjacent, but just barely. It's really to the west, and it's more associated with the Bethel redevelopment. The Dougherty Street corridor area is what the designation is for all the properties that are to the south and the east. All right. Here's an aerial view. So you're familiar with this piece. This has parking that serves Lay Park presently. Also has that portion of Hoyt Street that was formerly public right-of-way but is now used as a driveway, as well as a tot lot playground. Planning Commission's recommendation is for approval of the future land use request change as well as approval of the rezone. They found it to be compatible with the 2023 comprehensive plan, compatible with the surrounding future land use, the zoning, and the development character of the area, and wanted to recognize that downtown is the central hub of Athens-Clarke County, supports a variety of businesses, jobs, has a wealth of transportation opportunities and options, and does abut the University of Georgia as well as several event venues. And they are recommending the downtown design area to be the designation moving forward. And that is staff's report.
All right, thanks, Bruce. All right, is there any member of the public who'd like to speak to this item tonight? Again, just provide your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor. My name is Ed Lane with SPG Planners and Engineers at 1725 Electric Avenue. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Downtown Development Authority on the request to rezone this portion of this parcel. And I would just add, I know later in the agenda tonight you have the larger development agreement to discuss. And so I just wanted to, I understand that larger context, but the way what the Downtown Development Authority hired us to do, the way we prepared our report and our presentation to the commission was to rezone this on its own merits, separate and apart from the larger project. Of course, if y'all do decide to do that, this is a piece of that, but we believe, the Downtown Development Authority believes it's in the best interest of the ADDA and the city to rezone this regardless, as it does open up some possibilities for you all, whereas it does not close any doors. The Lay Park parking lot and the playground can remain exactly as they are, since the city would still retain that land if y'all chose to do that. So I did just want to mention that, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have, and appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Is there anyone else here to speak to this item tonight? All right, any commission discussion? This is in Commissioner Link's district.
Yeah, I mean, I think the planning commission had a pretty reasonable discussion about it. You know, we've got a lot of potential for this property, and, you know, a public-private partnership project proposed for the land that could actually bring massive public benefit, so,
Any others? Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I do have a question for Mr. Lane on this, looking at this here, because I think, and perhaps this was, Mr. Lonnie as well mentioned that this was actually considered part of Lay Park, which I haven't heard it referred to as part of the park. It was just like the parking lot. But was there ever any, in the design considerations, was there ever did you ever look at just using the one triangle in the front, or was it always both triangles?
So as I mentioned there, I am only representing the Downtown Development Authority on the rezone only.
On the
I know
Okay.
Buck Bacon with W&A and some of the other core spaces team is here, and I feel like they would be better to answer that
Okay.
question. I don't know if it's okay to bring them up now.
Sure.
Certainly. Would you like to hear from Mr. Bacon?
Yeah. I'm just curious if that was an option.
Hey there, Andy Savoy, Core Spaces. We did not consider the singular parcel, just using the one triangle, just given the North Downtown Athens master plan showed the development of both of those triangles, and the previous IGA considered the development of both of those triangles, so it was kind of a natural extension to consider both of those triangles as one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I would also note that in the conceptual design that the DDA commissioned, both were used as structured activity. I think as we've discussed in previous conversations, it demonstrated to be infeasible financially to kind of have the two triangular buildings, but at least one was mocked up and designed for that spot. Anything else on this one? All right, thanks, everyone. We're going to move on to old and new business.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right, so old and new business now is items 3 and 5 through 13. 3 and 5 through 13. Would any member of the public like to speak to any of those items? You can line up at the podium, and you'll each have the 3-minute opportunity. If you would like to speak to any items 3 or 5 through 13? Or if not, we can begin discussion.
I'm on behalf of the applicant. You want me to go now?
If you are here to
talking
speak
about
to any item 5 through 13 or number 3, now is
All right,
that time.
cool. I'm speaking about item number 6.
All right, good to see you.
All right. Evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again tonight. So I'm Jack Murphy. I'm with Carter. I'm talking about the Homewood Village redevelopment. The most important thing to take away from tonight is this. The plan development that we've submitted represents a more responsible and better site plan for the community than what can be developed by right. The reason we did not want to go with the by right process is that it would require building a significant amount of ground floor retail space when over 50% of recently developed ground floor retail in Athens is currently vacant, as well as building a lot of unnecessary parking that would not take advantage of shared parking opportunities between the residential and the retail. We would rather take the money we would have been spending on the retail and parking and use it on improvements to the existing retail buildings, the parking lots, the pedestrian-only connection to Magnolia Blossom, the townhome buffer, and creating roughly double the amount of pedestrian plaza space and tree canopy that would be required by the by right plan. If the plan development is denied, the site can still be redeveloped at the same residential density, at the same height, but without all the improvements that we made as a result of community feedback. We've heard a lot about traffic, but a by right project could create the same amount of residential density as our plan and retain the rest of the current allowable density, which totals over 1 million square feet. Our plan caps the total density at around 300,000 square feet unless we come back through this process, speak to the community, and get approval from you guys. All this to say, the waivers being granted as part of this plan development make a better site plan for everyone, the neighborhood, the city, our tenants, etc. We understand that growth and change can be scary, and there are real challenges associated with that across Athens-Clarke County. But denying a plan development that reduces the total allowable density, lowers potential trip generation, and fixes failing infrastructure doesn't solve those problems. It actually removes the ability to control them. We know it's a complicated site, and we can't go through everything in 3 minutes. So our plea tonight is that you all take time to speak with us between now and the voting session to discuss the project with us in greater detail, get to know Carter, learn our track record, and see what we stand for. At Carter, we have 3 values: creativity, tenacity, and care. And the last of those is the most important one to us. And we've been working on this project for 18 months now. And I would not stand up here and say the things I'm saying if I did not truly believe that the best possible site plan and the most realistic site plan for the redevelopment of this property is the one that we've submitted to you guys. So happy to answer any questions tonight. Thank you to the commissioners who have already scheduled meetings with us, and we look forward to hopefully connecting with everyone else. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Michael Goldser. I live at 120 Valleywood Drive in Athens. I'd like to speak to item number 6. I was here at the last meeting with the mayor and commission when this item was essentially put on hold. As far as I'm aware, nothing has changed in the proposal. The items that were discussed at the last meeting are still the same items and same concerns, and I don't see any need to move this forward until there's been more communication and possibly some addressing of those concerns that the community brought to you at the last meeting, and that I've sent to you, members of the commission and the mayor, in an email earlier today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldser.
Ed Lane with SPG Planners and Engineers again. I wanted to mention just 2 things, sewer, and then again, there were questions raised by some of the commissioners about why is this a planned development instead of some other entitlement or a by right project. Regarding the sewer, one thing that I would ask if y'all have the time is in the staff report under the Public Utility Department section of that staff report, I think they outlined that they support this project and approve the rezone request. And that was a lot of work that was done with PUD and the team, meeting their kind of new technical standards for how to do on-site sewer storage. And I understand in the summary, in the beginning of the staff report, there was a statement that was quite alarming there about the infrastructure can't support this. And I think, as you know, there are many carrying capacity issues for sewer countywide, and this basin is one of those. But PUD is working on solutions for that, and we met with them to satisfy those needs on this project. So I didn't want that kind of infrastructure issue to be a reason why y'all may not support this. The second was just about the PD route, why it was chosen, and I think Mr. Murphy spoke to this, but there is a way to do this density. This is a CG zone. We're not asking for any additional density. Most of the waivers are because of the part that's not being redeveloped, not the new part. So there is a way to, kind of play with the ordinance and make stuff work, but that's not how Carter operates. It's not how we would prefer to operate, is to find loopholes to make it work by right. It was more, let's do a plan development, an open and transparent process with the neighborhood. And they had a lot of community engagement. The reason they wanted to do that is what he mentioned, they hold the property for a long time. So these are going to be their community. And so they wanted to have that process. So that is why we chose to go the plan development route. And because it is a difficult site, we had a lot of waivers needed for the part of the retail that will not be demolished. But anyway, glad to answer any questions y'all may have. Is from the prior discussion, it did seem like there were some outstanding questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
We're fighting over. Hello, my name is Colette Walsh. I live at 225 Magnolia Blossom Way. That's in the cottages of Homewood. I live downhill from the shopping center, downhill from the creek that is from the shopping center, downhill from the sewage line from the shopping center. I'm here today to ask you to please vote against the proposed apartment complex in the shopping center. I'm very concerned about the effect this will have on the sewer system that we have in place now. There will be 500 more toilets, 500 more showers, 250 more dishwashers, kitchens, laundry rooms, etc. Our current sewage system, I heard him say that they said it could handle it. I've seen the pipe. We had a breach in our sewer line this past summer. For 7 days, we had signs up all over that it was toxic waste and do not touch. That's before 500 more flushes of the toilet every day. My house backs up to that creek that the holding tank, whatever the thing is going to let a little bit of water out at a time. My house is also between the sewer line and the creek, so that means that if that sewer line busts, it's my backyard. I'm concerned about the railroad being so close to that holding tank and the vibrations that vibrate my one-story cottage are going to be vibrating right up next to the sewer lines and next to the holding tank. I just think that needs to be addressed all through our walking space, our green space. I see the pipes exposed where the creek goes across. Those pipes are not in good shape. And I think that we need to address the sewage lines before we start putting 250 more apartments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Good evening.
Good evening, I'm back. So, good evening. Last time I talked about the sewage issue, and I have not seen any comments, any changes, any nothing during this month. But I just want to clarify that the large box that they're burying in the parking lot will be holding raw sewage, not stormwater. And these aging sewer lines are failing. Have the county attorneys considered the liability associated with approving this many new residential units here that their own staff says lacks the wet weather sewer capacity? Considering the ongoing problem with sewage in people's backyards, approving a project that will increase the amount of sewage is a dereliction of the county's duty to protect its citizens from harm. But now I'm going to move on to a new topic, stormwater detention. ACC stormwater regulations pertaining to the redevelopment of a previously developed site applies to this site. The stormwater criteria impose standards of water quality, runoff reduction, stream channel, habitat protection, etc. These generally require detention of stormwater. The large scale of this redevelopment should provide ample opportunity for stormwater management to meet ACC requirements. However, the site plans indicate no stormwater detention whatsoever. They're piping it directly into the stream. The applicant says this parcel qualifies for runoff from existing impervious surface standards as part of Code Section 5-7C. There is no such section of the code. Presumably, they refer to 5-4-7B, which says that the Department of Transportation and Public Works Director may determine that full compliance with the stormwater criteria may be infeasible in the redevelopment of a previously developed site. Has such a determination been made? I don't see it. Did the applicant provide justification demonstrating how the redevelopment satisfies the better site design and smart growth principles as required? Which criteria were used to make this determination? If an official determination has not been made, then the proposed plan is extremely inconsistent with ACC stormwater regulations. If ACC allows this to move forward with a site plan that doesn't allow for any stormwater detention, they will most certainly argue, the developer, that it is truly infeasible when it comes time to submit their formal stormwater plan. You are not supposed to receive relief on the basis of a self-created constraint. Please, I also have not seen anything drawn in. Last time I mentioned the 75-foot stream buffer and others, I have not seen that clarified on the plans. And please turn down this proposal, and we really need a more holistic proposal for this site that takes into consideration all this infrastructure.
Thank you, Ms. Little.
Thank you. I was done.
Anyone else here tonight to speak to any item of old or new business? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Lisa Germain. I live in River Bottom. No, I don't live in River Bottom, sorry. That's where I used to live. We live in Homewood Hills and Valleywood. I had sent an email to my commissioner about the concerns that we have in the neighborhood for increased traffic, different people coming, just the concerns. I have a son who has disabilities and has visual impairments. We already have a fairly difficult community to navigate with the cars, the through traffic that we have. The speed bumps have helped somewhat, but still it's of great concern. But after listening to other people in the neighborhood, it also brings to mind a problem that we have that is really an infrastructure situation. The house that we live on is actually on Honeycutt Creek, and we've lived in the neighborhood for 8 years, and we have had 3 times that we have had water up to our porch and actually backing up into our toilets and into the bathrooms from stormwater. When it rains, sometimes the manholes actually float on our street. So if this is where we're at and we are upstream from everything else happening, if we end up having 250 extra units that are then feeding into that system, we've had washing up foam, toilet water, grey water in our bathroom. And that's as it is now. That's not with any of this new development that's coming on. So that's a real concern for me. Just, You know, the traffic, absolutely, but very definitely how just even the infrastructure of how the heck do we manage to stay in a house that we absolutely love, in a neighborhood that we love, when we're just going to have even more water and more problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Germain. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Robert West. I live in 145 Atkinson Drive. I haven't spoken before at something like this. I wasn't really planning to speak, so I just wrote some things down listening to people. I appreciate everybody who's come out to support and share their opinions. One of these guys said something about, getting a lot of community feedback and wanting to be transparent with the community about their development. What sounds like, from my perspective, it seems like a lot of the community feedback, quote unquote, has been people telling them that you suck and to go away. So, I think not everyone here is well versed in the exactly, zoning laws and how rainwater is going to work, but doesn't, may not be able to articulate in just the right way, but has a deep and correct feeling that this is a poor choice of the land and doesn't really help anyone here. What would I have to look like to come up here and, do you think I'm going to support this? No, I'd probably have to wear a suit to do that. I'm not sure exactly who this is supposed to benefit, except people who are selling the land and making money off of it. The idea that they're piping some of some of the water in this creek is such a joke, honestly. I mean, this creek already floods multiple times per year, usually, like dead minimum, usually once per year. The space this creek goes through is through the neighborhood, just to be clear. Like, it winds through the neighborhood in a pretty beautiful liminal space between people's houses, having, this area be affected. There's trails along this, having this be affected by a construction project that nobody wants upstream is just silly. I think people are upset about this for many reasons, but one of them is probably just a general lack of feeling like the city is just pumping money into infrastructure nobody wants, and people want cheap, affordable housing. I get it. Is this the place for this? Like, almost definitely not, assuredly. So that's really all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. West. Is there any other member of the public who'd like to speak to any item of old or new business tonight?
My name is Lillian West. I live at 145 Atkinson Drive. I don't know a lot about this project, but I did hear that they wanted the apartments to be 5 stories high, and I heard that many people are not in favor of that. And I also heard that at the last meeting that was not altered at all. So I think that's one of the big objections, is 5 stories high. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. West. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Shanice Allen. I live at 130 Meredith Ridge Road, president of Inner East Athens Neighborhood Association, and I'm speaking on number 5. My first concern is the relocation of the playground, and this is regarding the Core Hub 2 project and its impact on Lake Park community. The playground is being moved without sufficient funding identified to fully complete the project. This relocation did not originate as a community-requested improvement, but rather as a change that primarily benefits the developer's project's footprint. Yet now, taxpayers are being asked to cover the remaining costs of relocating and rebuilding a community asset. I respectfully ask, why are public funds being used to subsidize a private development decision and that will not directly benefit the neighborhood? Secondly, I am deeply concerned about the ADA accessibility and parking. The proposed plan moves accessible parking to over 500 feet away from the entrance of Lake Park. For clarity, 500 feet is approximately the length of 1.5 football fields. For individuals with mobility challenges, parents with children, seniors, and anyone using assistive devices, this distance creates a real and unnecessary barrier to access. ADA accessibility is not just about compliance on paper. It is about meaningful, dignified access. Moving parking that far from the entrance undermines the principle and disproportionately affects those who rely on Lay Park the most. Third, I question why community parking is being tucked away while a parking deck directly across from Lay Park, which will be built, is going to be a student parking deck, which will not be utilized for community access. If the goal is accessibility, equity, and shared use, the deck should be part of the solution rather than pushing residents further away. My concerns: the playground relocation lacks full funding and unfairly shifts costs to taxpayers. The changes primarily benefit the developer, not the community. ADA accessible parking being moved 500 feet away creates a significant access barrier, and I just didn't make up the 500 feet. I got that from the planning review meeting. Existing parking resources near Lay Park are not being appropriately leveraged. I respectfully ask the Commission to revisit these decisions, ensure full funding responsibility is placed appropriately, and prioritize community access, equity, and ADA considerations before moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Susan Monteverdi, and I live here in Athens. On Safety Athens, we did a Facebook survey of parents because we were always told, well, students don't drive in Athens, they don't bring cars. Well, I'm here to tell you it's a little bit different than that. The question was, does your student have a car on or off campus? In survey results, immediately we had 71 yes, 6 no. Over 90% of students have a car at UGA, and many live off campus. Hub 1 is 260 spaces short versus the number of beds that they have. They have students park at the Riv and Newberry, and they're looking for more parking. Hub 2, which is the core project that you're looking at now with IZ zoning and 20% reduction in parking, will have 584 on-site parking spaces for 1,400 beds, which is their general rule of thumb of 42%. This doesn't cut it. This leaves 697 spaces needed at 1 per bed. The new deck will only have 373 spaces after allowing for 52 for Lay Park. What does this mean? This means when ADDA rents 100% of the new spaces monthly to students, there will be 303 more cars parked on the streets, plus the already 260 spaces from Hub 1 as overflow. That totals 563 cars on our streets. This is what parents call ridiculous. And in returns with the deal, this is what I just wanted to say personally. We learned at the last work session that the 2.5 million sewer capacity increase would have to be built by the developer if he wanted to do the 950-bed project by right on existing property. We also figured out, based on Hub 1, at $11.95 per month with a 15% return on investment, the developer is roughly putting $1 million in his pocket just based on the increase in density of the unit, of the project. We also understand that ADDA, in order to make the financing work, has to use the $546,000 of debt that's retiring from the Washington Street Park deck in order to make the finances work. Well, that's not fair, because 60% of that $546,000 could be going to the ACC General Fund at $327,600 annually from now until ever, to be used for something else. ACC will be responsible for operating, maintenance, not even discussed, and emergency services for student parking, which will have liability on that deck forever. Where is ACC going to get the $1 million for Lay Park in order to improve the park after the playground? The bottom line is this: the developer is putting $7.8 million into an affordable housing fund, while ACC is incurring $11.5 million for student parking, for a student parking deck in debt. Why? Does this have anything to do with the gratuity clause? And
Thank you, Ms. Monteverde.
Should ACC go directly into debt with $8 million to the Affordable Housing Fund without building a student parking deck? Scale down the project.
Thank you, Ms.
and add
Monteverde. I
parking
appreciate you
for the
being with us
development.
tonight.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Heather McElroy. I live at 228 Magnolia Blossom Way. And I'm glad that you are still here, because I was driving as fast as I could coming from another event. I'm exhausted of talking about this. I feel like we've talked about it for a very long time, but I wanted to be here to let you know that I am very much against the Homewood Shopping Center redevelopment, the way it is proposed. I'm tired of hearing the buy right stuff. I'm tired of the fear mongering. This is not what's best for the community. This is not what the community has told y'all for nearly 3 years that we want for that space. If y'all would just vote on the future land use, it would alleviate a lot of the issues that the neighborhood has as far as the height, pushing everything back onto cottages at Homewood. We do not need more apartment complexes in this town. And there are a lot of people that feel that way, but are afraid to come up here and talk because of the business that they're in. I am not afraid to talk. Like, I'm raising my family here. We've been here for decades, and I want to continue to live here. And there are apartments everywhere in this town with lots of vacancy, a lot of vacancy. The future land use tells you we don't need more apartments. Why do y'all even consider this? Like, it is astonishing to me that it's even being considered. And I'm really frustrated that it got tabled, quite frankly, because there were so many people that spoke out against it. We do not want it. It is not what is best for Athens. We have so many apartments in this community. It is not good for our environment. There are many other issues that other people have talked about that need to be addressed on the forefront. And this site can be redeveloped in a much more feasible way for our community, not on top of single-story and two-story houses. And it's just frustrating that we're still here and we're still talking about it when it should have been voted down last month. And I'm asking you to please vote it down. We are the tax-paying citizens of this community. Please do not pass this next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McElroy. All right, we'll come to commission discussion. I think item 3 was pulled from consent. Commissioner Myers, you asked for a discussion of this.
Oh, still thinking about the last comment. Yes, I did want to make sure I understood this correctly, because I know this project, what do we call the People of Hope project here, has, there are a lot of concerns about it moving forward. So just in terms of this, that I looked at the picture, I found the answer to where the forced main was, and it says that it uses passive voice. So basically, I want to ask you, who built the original sewer forced main on Freeman that needs to be replaced? And was it actually ever used? Because it was going to this development that hasn't been built yet. So, and then if so, how come it didn't work 10 years later?
Yeah, so I'll answer a piece of that, then I'll have Hollis, who's back there, come up and do the piece. So, no, it has never been used because there was nothing to connect to
Okay.
it. And that actually plays a direct role in why it failed over the period of time. Now,
And who paid for it?
it was
Did
done private. It was done by a private developer and then turned over for me, I think. but I'll
The
let-
force?
That's correct. It was done by private and then turned over publicly.
Okay.
Since that development never came online, that line just sat dry, and now it's unusable.
Okay, and you mean because it wasn't being used?
That's correct.
That's what caused it to deteriorate?
That's correct.
That's just normal because it requires the whatever to be going through it to keep it in shape, okay.
So,
Anything further, Commissioner?
I think, and is that the same People of Hope development that's being looked at now? Is that with a different owner, or, I mean, it's the same name.
no, it's not the
It's
same.
saying that, it's the word hope is in there. Okay, the word hope is in there, so that's what I
It's a
wanted to clarify.
different organization,
So it's a
Commissioner.
different organization, but with the word hope in there, so that's very important to clarify. So, thank you, that's helpful.
Anything else?
No, that's
Everybody
it.
okay with this back on consent?
Yeah.
Commissioner Thornton?
No, I just wanted to, I guess I'm going to make sure, I just want to make sure I'm clear too, because, I guess I got it twisted with People of Hope and it's Hope 139. So this is no fault or anything of the new owners there, because this went through, I think, whoever owned the property donated the property to them. This has nothing to do with the new project at all.
That is correct.
Are they not on they're not on septic tanks?
No, ma'am.
Can we leave it off? I just want to make sure I understand. I'd like to leave
Certainly.
it off.
Anyone else on this?
I do.
Yeah, Commissioner Fisher.
So, before you leave, Hollis, so if this gets corrected, will it help other systems, residents around there for us getting hooked up to sewer? Or is it just for that one particular?
It's for that development, but it is in a bigger phase coming up with the Sand Creek Basin. So it's a bigger thing coming up, but it will help tie in some more, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I guess that's
Commissioner.
what I was saying. I know that when I talked to Bob about sewer in that area, and I knew that he says Public Works was working on that basin. So this will eventually connect to the bigger piece, but this is what needs to be done now?
That's exactly right, yes.
Yeah, I think you still have to remember also that this is a forced main system. It's not a gravity flow, so it is limited in what can connect to this particular system. But yes, it isn't just for these, I don't know how many, there's not very many houses initially connecting to it, but there are definitely more homes that will connect to it as they get built.
Okay, thank you.
Johnson.
Manager Bob, do you mind explaining the difference that you just highlighted right there?
Yeah, so
difference?
the gravity flow line is, usually parallels a creek, and it just mimics the natural flow so that as flows downhill and connects into the pipe stuff. In some instances, the topography doesn't allow that, and so you're actually having to put it under pressure and actually move the wastewater to usually some kind of well that actually lifts it up into the system that we have in place. It was actually during that pressure testing that it failed. You wouldn't do that for a gravity flow line, but a system is under pressure, has to be watertight, and it was not during tests.
Commissioner Myers.
One more question on that. In the discussion of extending the sewer that is referred to and then was, whatever the date was 15 years ago, was taken out of the service delivery, plan. If that was in it, would that be a forced main as well, a sewer force main? Like if you were extending it, it would be, wouldn't it? Or would that be?
In that basin, I think it's going to be a combination, most
It's a
likely.
combination.
Okay.
And you'll see more of that. So the revised service delivery plan will be coming forward in a few months. But alongside that too, we're also talking about a couple of independent kind of basin studies where we'll be looking at that in more detail. But when you get into some of these areas where the topography is just pretty complicated, you're likely to see both gravity systems and force main.
Those are the two kinds of systems.
Yeah.
The two, got it.
Commissioner Thorne.
So, when did this happen? When did this was tested and
I'll say started about 2 or 3 months ago, testing to make sure that this development could come online.
Okay.
And then discovered the pipes just wouldn't hold.
So, and you may not be able to answer this question, but I assume then that is why the development has slowed down. Because on the front end, there are people who are occupying 2 of those cottages. But on the back, there's nothing going on. So the people who are on the front end of Freeman, are they impacted by what you discovered, or it just, you caught it and you're going to fix it?
We caught it and we're going to fix it as soon as we can. Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Link.
Yeah, so this is an entire length of pipe that needs to be replaced, right? I'm trying to see how many feet of pipe? And it's the whole section of it. I mean,
Can't remember the linear foot. You remember how many linear foot?
It's about 880 linear feet. Best I can do.
880 feet, okay. Okay, and it runs along, and it's in the public right-of-way, the transportation right-of-way? Okay.
Anything else? All right. You, Hollis, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, we'll leave this on discussion, so if you have questions at the voting meeting in January, those can be addressed.
You know what? I'm good. It can go consent. If it's
Everybody else okay with this on consent?
Yeah.
All right, so 3 will move back to consent. All right. All right, 5, I've had a lot of discussion around in this room and Dougherty Street, the development agreement for the redevelopment of public and private properties around 295 East Dougherty. Anything further on this tonight? All right. I'm assuming this won't be on consent?
No, off.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine. All right, 6 regards 2415 Jefferson Road. This was held over from last month.
To be off consent.
Anything further on this?
Yeah,
Turn to Commissioner
yeah.
Fisher in his district, and then
Yeah,
Commissioner Culpepper.
do want to comment, and I would not be a good commissioner if I did not let the constituents know all the options on the floor, and none of this is fear-mongering, but I do want us to understand if the residents don't like the project, I understand that and I appreciate that. But I do want everybody to understand, if this project doesn't go through, a developer can come in and build by right a 5-story project, and it does not have to come before the commission. They can do it by right. So I would not be a good commissioner if I did not tell you all that. So you need to understand, I know last time we was here, I understand somebody said I was lying about that, but that's why I asked Bruce London to stick around. But that's part of our ordinance, that's part of our zoning, what we got here. For future land use, not sure when we're gonna vote on that. It's not due to 2028, so I'm not sure when we're gonna do. But I just need my constituents to understand the options that are out there, and that is one of the options that is out there. Now, if this fails, another developer, nobody may not even come along for years, and maybe the future land use will get approved. Then we look at another development. But I gotta, I think it's it's onus on me to put that out there in front of my constituents, let them know that.
Commissioner Culpepper and then Thornton.
Yeah, so they talked about the existing infrastructure issues. There's existing stormwater issues and existing sewer. So if nothing gets done, that doesn't get fixed. Is that correct?
Not necessarily correct on the sanitary sewer. It is definitely one of the areas where there's infiltration in the line. So stormwater is getting into the sewer lines, and that's what's causing the capacity issue. So we're constantly, throughout the entire system, replacing and fixing those. So I couldn't say that wouldn't get replaced at some point in time. There are no immediate plans to do that. The stormwater, I think it's accurate. The existing site doesn't have the stormwater detention on site and would just continue to operate in that fashion until something came along to address that.
And then what the developer's proposing is fixing the problems with the existing sewer and fixing the stormwater. Is that?
Sewer, yes. I'd have to look to somebody else to talk about the stormwater piece of it.
Can y'all speak to that?
Somebody from the development team speak to the stormwater treatment on the proposal?
Yes, sure. Yeah, that is what is unique here, is this is a huge site and there's no stormwater management whatsoever. So what the neighbors have described is what you would imagine, having something that much asphalt, and it dumps out into the creek back there, and it's a huge erosion problem. What any redevelopment, including the plan development or even a by right project, would have to do, and what we are showing is removing 20% of the impervious area of the site, and that immediately causes a big reduction in that runoff, because we now have landscaped areas that can soak, especially your everyday rain that really over time causes a lot of erosion and damage, and then of course your big events that have more significant things. But in addition to removing that impervious, we also have thousands of square feet of pervious pavers, And that is not just something on the surface to, look nice. It is an engineered stormwater system below that is also taking that runoff, storing it underground, infiltrating some of it, bypassing some of the larger storms. So that it is inaccurate to say we're not doing any stormwater management. We are doing some of it by just reduction, and we're doing additional by impervious systems. So, yeah.
And I do want to clarify the sanitary sewer. So the infiltration that's taking place is not necessarily taking place on this site. It's taking place elsewhere in the watershed. What their proposal is to accommodate the development that's going on here and include a storage tank that would release the wastewater at a different rate, not make the situation worse than it currently is. So not fixing it, that's still going to require projects off-site to be able to fix ultimately the infiltration that's coming into the system. So I wanted to make sure that was clear.
That if the site does not get developed, the stormwater issue does not get fixed. It just remains, because we can't make the property owner fix something that's, the parking lot or the impervious and all that. So that situation is going to remain the same, if not get worse.
Right, for the stormwater, that's correct.
Yeah.
Got Commissioners Thornton, Lincoln, Johnson.
Oh, and I think someone spoke to, we have too many apartments and I think that is true. And also that many of these apartments are not fully occupied 100%. Bob, you may not be able to answer this question, but is this preparation of all of this growth is with the anticipation of the population growing to the 30,000 in the next 10 years? And I got a part two.
Yeah, I mean, there's, certainly any new development, whether it's apartments, whether it's homes, whatever those may be, is trying to, from a market standpoint, trying to respond to two things. One is whatever growth exists already, so just people moving around within the community, and then the growth that we anticipate is occurring. And that growth is a combination of growth at the university, and it is a combination of people moving into the community. So that's in effect what they're responding to with that. And I did want to clarify, because I know future land use map has come up a couple times, and I'm unaware of anything in the proposed future land use map, and certainly not the existing either, that removes the potential or desire to have any more multifamily or apartments. There's certainly a part of the future land use map as well. I mean, that is a definite mix within our plan. But yes, that's what they're trying to respond. That's what any developer is trying to respond to, is what is the market potential today and what might the market potential be ahead of time in capturing that.
And I guess my thought is with the future land use, and we just kind of indirectly touched on it with the Freeman Drive repair that we have to do. And now we're hearing about infrastructure problems or situations in Homewood Hills off of Jefferson Road. And we know that we've heard about other infrastructure problems throughout. Are we putting the cart before the horse? We're anticipating and building, and we are not taking care of our infrastructure needs. Are we putting the cart before the horse? Buildings are going up, but we are not fixing what is below. And I'm not no fan of the future land use plan myself. Sure. But I do think that we're going to have a lot more of these situations come before us, and we're going to have the same concerns about infrastructure. I am also concerned, again, about the rezones. We do too many rezones and not taking care of our infrastructure. So I don't know if you can speak to that, or I'm just making a statement.
And the first thing to say is you are all definitely investing in the infrastructure. So we absolutely are putting in new lines Most of those projects are actually to take care of existing problems. So either existing capacity issues where we know there needs to be additional capacity for growth, or in many cases, this infiltration issue where there's stormwater getting into the system. A lot of the system is old and it has to be replaced. So the majority of the money is actually going toward that. There are some projects that the money's going toward that are really totally new extensions that are designed to accommodate new growth. The challenge that we have is anybody that looks at kind of if you remember on the future land use map, it has kind of the lines that are drawn around that show the sewer service area. There's not much rhyme or reason as to how that was all kind of done over decades, really, of extensions. And so we've got a lot of lines in a lot of different places with a lot of different ages. We have in-city areas, which are a combination of septic systems and sewer systems. And so there are many, many pockets of areas, much like what you're seeing here, where there are isolated problems that have to get addressed along the way. And there are quite a few of those as we go. So that will continue for the foreseeable future. That will continue to be an emphasis that has to be a part of the sewer work, more so than the water. Somewhat streets, when you're talking about infrastructure, same kind of thing with the transportation system, but it really is predominantly around kind of the sewer areas and taking care of where those bottlenecks are and investing in those. But you all actually have been putting quite a bit of money into those. They just still exist.
So where is Homewood Hills in our sewer system infrastructure? If we had a chart, where are they at? And
Timing-wise?
Timing or, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll ask Hollis if he's still back there. Yep, I'll ask him to come up, because what it really will be is, don't think of it as Homewood Hills as much as it is the basin that it's in, because it's the entire basin that's impacted.
But that's my point. That is my point exactly. If developers are having this vision of being able to accommodate all of these new folk, it need to be in line with the infrastructure repairs. We're inviting folk here, and even when they get here, if that infrastructure is not, we're still going to have a problem. We may not have a big problem now, but we will have a big problem later as you have more development.
Yeah, so your service delivery plan should link very directly with what the future land use plan is. Now, not everything is going to evolve in exactly the same time, but they should be.
They should be linked, and our developers should be able to see that and be able to address it. And constituents will feel like, you're not just dumping something on them. So where are we, Hollis?
So we made the recommendation to install a sewer storage tank. But in the meantime, we're putting out flow meters in that area, and we're going to get the capacity fixed by what we call coating the line. That's helped us a lot, especially on Barnett Shoals. But that's the goal. We think we can reduce a lot of I&I just by coating the lines over there.
Is our commissioner for that district aware of where you are or I should ask you, can I ask the commissioner, mayor?
Certainly.
Were you aware that they had this process of addressing the infrastructure when you made your recommendation?
I was not aware of that. However, I met with county manager yesterday. He shared some information with me that sort of gave me an indication for how we're looking from sewer capacity and water capacity. So I got some ideas now for when we're looking at building. And you answered what I've been saying for months, that in order for us to have a good future land use and a comprehensive plan, we got to make sure that our sewer capacity and our water capacity can sustain the building. So what he shared with me yesterday, I see where we're going, what we need to do, so it's going to help. And he's going to share with the rest of us. It just happened. I had my meeting with him yesterday. It came up because that was a big concern of mine. We continue to build, but we don't have the sewer capacity to support what we're building. So that's why we mentioned about doing a moratorium.
And that's where I was heading off to. This is, I don't know why the moratorium idea sank before it got out the dock, but it's for that reason alone, or one of that. that you did try to address a moratorium. Well, it doesn't fit this case, but it's going to come up again. That's why I'm bringing it up again.
And I think a couple thoughts is, one is we will be, to the commissioner's point, we will be coming forward with a work session that is on the service delivery plan.
Yeah.
And that work session is where we're going to be able to talk about a number of these pieces. And that's big picture. That's not just this basin. The other is, when we talk about capacity, recall that our treatment plants have an abundance of capacity. We have no issues there. Where we've got are some of these bottlenecks predominantly caused by infiltration coming into the system, occasionally caused by the size of the pipe. So sometimes you'll see a developer who's ready to actually take action on development will actually advance an investment that we might have made 5, 6, 7 years from now because they want to move forward in the development. In other instances, they're trying to do something to offset the limit, like in this case with the storage tank associated with it. But it really is incumbent upon what's in the service delivery plan and what we're investing those literally tens of millions of dollars in over the next few years to try to address those issues. And that's a part of what we'll be discussing with you when they come to seek the approval of the service delivery plan update, which should be this spring.
Yeah.
But I just want to go on record, I know it's not going to happen, but I think that we need to do the moratorium, we need to revisit the moratorium until we get the service.
And the reason why there's all kinds of reasons why the moratorium is a challenge, but the principal reason is because in most of these instances, and we've got 2 projects actually currently in this process, you're talking about the core project and you're talking about this particular project where the developer has offered a solution that actually enables the development to take place. If you have a moratorium in place, that places you at some legal risk. Doesn't mean you have to approve the rezonings associated with those.
No, I wouldn't even consider Core or Homewood Hill being a part of, but this is going to happen again.
Yeah, I just use those 2 as examples where there is a way in which the development has identified to overcome what the limitation was. And there may be some of those that can't. The thing is, if that's the case, they actually can't develop. So if there's actually an instance where they cannot overcome whatever the limitation is, the rezoning can't be granted because there's actually not an ability to develop. And in some instances, the by right activity can't even occur because they can't actually develop those pieces. So.
Okay, thank you.
And I know I've got Commissioners Link, Johnson, Myers, and again Culpepper on tap. I will note that the mechanism proposed here is a mechanism that we've looked at ourselves for a SPLOST project of our own on the Advantage campus. So it's a common
which I think
tool.
Is actually in the same basin, right?
Yeah. Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I think Commissioners Culpepper's questions about the stormwater kind of got my answers. So the stormwater issues on that property will actually be improved by this development. There'll be more porous surface, and it'll be less likely that you're going to get some of that washout in the creek and some of the soggy ground in the cottages back there.
Yeah, that's certainly what the applicant's engineer has indicated.
Yeah, I mean, I am really concerned about the sewer and the porosity of that public line that it will be feeding into. And I also have concerns about the height. I understand people's feelings about tall buildings, within their view shed. I think I could be comfortable with this project if it were brought down a story. That would remove some of the density, allowing that density to possibly be used in a phase 2. It would lower the risk for that sewage tank, and it might lower some of the traffic capacity. I'm interested in learning more. I think I did reach out to the manager in TPW asking some questions about GDOT's plans for that corridor and specifically that area, because they have done a study and do have plans for improvements over there. So I want to get some of those questions answered. But I do want to talk to the developers about some compromise. I really believe in compromise. I understand what can go here by right, and it could make things a lot worse for a lot of people. I think this is a nice project. I do have concerns about the infrastructure and the traffic, and I understand the aesthetics behind tall buildings. I've once had a big, giant, tall building proposed for effectively in my backyard, and there was a lot of neighborhood outrage about it, and we ended up with another project that proposed a slightly less tall building that got very little objection. Unfortunately, that project hasn't gone anywhere, but, you know, I really believe in compromise, and I would hope that there's room for that here. And Commissioner Fisher and I have had some conversation, we'll be having more conversation, but, you know, I do understand by right what could go down here, and there are some solutions being proposed to address some of the problems on site. That sewer line, that's our responsibility. I would like to hear from PUD about the timeline for the improvements to that public line to assure that, you know, we're not risking some kind of catastrophic failure if we do add a couple hundred bedrooms to this site.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. So I think I'm going to just say a few points that I think I heard, and I want to make sure I understood it correctly, that there is an ongoing sewer issue at that property location.
Not at this property location. Within the basin,
I'm sorry.
there are constraints. Because they're developing this property, they need to take that into account as we work toward the improvements that Commissioner Link just referenced. Because once those improvements are done, at least in the immediate term, that limitation would go away in parts of the basin.
This feels like we're expecting developers to fix our issues. This is a ACC infrastructure issue. I'm curious where it falls in line with the service delivery plan. When were we going to get to the issue and address the issue in the basin? It puts developers in a position where they feel like they have to, I mean, we say gratuities, we can't do that, but it puts developers in a position where they have to dangle a carrot. We'll fix your sewer if you let us, because that's what's going on downtown, that's what's going on, it's a carrot with this. And it shouldn't be in that order. We have a service delivery plan. The Public Utilities Department is a fee-for-service enterprise fund, so our fees pay for this infrastructure. I just don't know why we are openly discussing a process that's backwards and putting the responsibility, at least with my limited knowledge, on a developer. And that's why we're having so many variances. I agree. I think discussing a moratorium would be very helpful and very healthy and necessary. There's a reason for it. This is not how, this is our responsibility. I mean, we can work with developers, but to say, we will grant this if you do that, that doesn't sound any different from a gratuities violation.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, it's actually an expense to the developer.
It is.
So they're not receiving any benefit. They can't actually consider redevelopment of this property without that issue being resolved. And yes, I don't disagree that this ultimately ensuring that the infrastructure is sufficient to accommodate what we anticipate for growth and development is front and center, one of our responsibilities within the organization. It is not necessarily practical, and this would be true everywhere, any community. It's not practical to the point at which the entire service area is going to be without limitations. You're always going to encounter some of those. I think what you're reacting to, and I agree, is that there have been a series of those from downtown to a couple of other properties, and that's a conversation I've had with utilities to make certain that the updated service delivery plan that comes forward is much clearer in how we're addressing those as they work through. I think also that there have been a lot of improvements that have been done to address these very kinds of issues that, frankly, the commission's just not aware of because they're projects that we don't talk about. I mean, they're projects, they're not like a new bridge that opened up or something else. It's some sewer line that we actually lined that now doesn't leak, and therefore there's capacity. So part of what we need to share with you all when we talk about the service delivery plan is what actually has improved because of those investments over that period of time. But yes, I mean, part of what you're saying, I totally agree with, and it has to be a part of our focus, the utility focus as it goes forward.
Yeah, I would think the what is that called? The service commitment plan?
Service
delivery plan, yeah, thank
SDP.
you. The service delivery plan would actually tie in and fold in with the future land use.
It
Like
does.
should.
It
Like
does. The catch, though, is, remember, your service delivery plan is at most for 5 years.
5 years, right.
So your future land use plan is trying to define what you're going to do over the next 20 years. So there's a timing element attached to that. So it should never be assumed that everything that's shown on the future land use plan could be implemented tomorrow.
Oh, no,
for a
I
bunch of
wasn't saying
reasons.
that.
And so, yes, but definitely there has to be a connection between those. So we should be, in part, basing our future land use plan on the availability of infrastructure existing and planned. And similarly, we should be actually planning our infrastructure based on what the future land use plan calls for. Those two have to be close. Transportation has to be right next to that as well.
Yes, I agree. One last comment. When I went through orientation, I met with the director and the assistant director, and the assistant director was very motivated and had all this data, and I'm into data. And so he knew every answer to the question. And so he made a comment at the end, thank you for your patience and being so interested, but I was. But he said, I know everything. I know the history and I know the condition of every, sewer line. So we have that knowledge in our own department, and I would be curious how this affects the neighboring area, their sewer capacity bill. That, you know what I'm saying? Because that is something I've received calls on, and I cannot explain the math. And in this situation, if there's an existing problem, I don't know if Commissioner Fisher receives questions or people, it's just too complicated to get into it. I don't know, but I'm curious how their sewer capacity bills are evaluated with that existing issue.
You talking about their bills for their service?
The service. What's the sewer bill that we, what is it?
So, yeah, there's a
Separate
line
from
item
water
for a
now.
sewer bill and line item for a water bill if
Yeah.
you're a public utilities customer.
Yeah, I mean, the sewer and
Yeah, no one
water,
knows that.
so part of the bill that we all pay for those utilities goes toward operations, and part of it goes toward these capital projects. So certainly, the more capital projects we do, the more revenue we need, and that's part of the reason why you'll see adjustments in your utility bills, is to actually be, and again, the majority of that capital is to take care of existing lines and fix existing problems. There is also expenditures that are done to actually extend services. So yes, a piece of it, you can't really break out, you can when you look at the aggregate, so you know how much revenue we take in, how much of that's going toward operations and how much that's going to capital, that's in the budget. For an individual, it's not as easy to break out that piece. But.
Well, people want that. That's what I was talking about. I get the revenue part. I do understand that. But when neighbors want to know how their sewage, that bill is calculated, I heard the description tonight when others were talking about overflow and whatnot, the impervious surface. I know that is a figure that's considered in the calculation.
You're mentioning stormwater, which is a different
Stormwater.
bill.
Yeah, I was saying sewer.
So
Thank
here
you.
we're talking
Stormwater.
about
But it would
that's-
affect that, though.
That's as a
Wouldn't it-
former
would it
commissioner
not
Carl George
affect
called
that?
God's
It's a
water.
so it's a separate piece. So you've got really, in effect,
Okay.
3 utilities: water, wastewater, and stormwater. And
Gotcha.
each of them have kind of their own calculations, and each of them have their own plans.
So this doesn't
as well.
affect that?
So, correct.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the confusion.
no, it's fine.
The learning moment for me.
I've got Commissioner Myers, back to Culpepper, and then Thornton.
Yeah, just following up on this other discussion briefly, with this service delivery plan, I'm sure you'll present us with the finances about that, because there's one thing approving the plan, and the other thing is having the money to implement the plan, which requires requires a lot of political courage in terms of increases in money coming from somewhere. In terms of this project, though, I wanted to ask 2 questions, or a couple of questions here. The developer mentioned the strategy for addressing the stormwater, and that it would be improved. I did notice, I have a couple of things. One is that, what kind of technical analysis is done of that from our end? You guys might be great, but we have to double check these things, right? So what kind of analysis was done at our end? Also, and I don't know if this was just a misstatement or misreading, but you mentioned removing 20% of the impervious surface, right there. But on page 37 of one of these documents that I opened, it says that there's a 7.2% reduction in impervious, which will bring the site into compliance. So I don't know which one it is on that. But also, so just the one question on the technical analysis that we do at our end to verify that, we think their engineers are doing the right thing. And then the second thing, and I know I asked about this the last time, but perhaps Planning Director Lonnie can send me something with something circled on it in red, which shows that 75% water buffer, because I looked in on the documents. Again, I haven't, the reaction after we discussed this last week was such that I wasn't sure where it was going. But when I'm looking at the documents on page 77, and the narrative also refers to the state 25-foot water buffer, but not the local 75-foot water buffer. So, and the maps too, I see reference to a state 25-foot buffer.
I think Director Lonnie's directing he will send that to you.
Okay,
and
right,
send that
right,
to the whole group so we can
Okay,
see the
got it.
riparian buffer indicated on the map. And then for you, Bob, the question is sort of what does technical review look like for new stormwater infrastructure in a redevelopment site?
So any project that comes in is going to be reviewed by a host of different staff members. So our stormwater division within TPW does review the stormwater plans, and what they're looking at are a couple of things. They're looking at obviously how much impervious surface there is. They're looking at, if required, the detention calculations and verifying those from the design engineer. They're looking at the sizing of the pipes that actually take the stormwater away from the site to make sure they're consistent with the calculations that have been provided by them. So our folks are not, they're not engineering the site. They're just determining compliance with the ordinance. It's really up to the design engineer to actually propose the ideas for doing those. And that would be true with any development, whether it's a single site or whether it's a full subdivision component of it.
But at what stage does that get verified?
Reviewed.
Yeah, that's going to get done when the civil engineering plans come in through the process. So typically, that a cursory review of some aspects of that will be done at the rezoning stage,
Right.
which we're at now. At the period at which that's approved and construction has been authorized, if you will, to move forward, that's when your civil engineering plans come in, and that's when those detailed calculations and the review takes place.
Do we ever send things back and say, look, this isn't working?
All the time.
All the time.
Probably more times than any of the folks that are back there that are engineers and designers would prefer us to do, so yes.
Okay, thank you.
Got Commissioner Culpepper and then Thornton.
Yeah, this is just one quick comment. So Hollis, you talked about coating the pipes. The problem that we're talking about is the groundwater getting into the pipes. When we're coating the pipes, that's keeping the groundwater out, and that's increasing our capacity, correct?
Correct.
And that's a lot cheaper than putting in new lines. And we don't know what sort of capacity that does, but it's a lot easier and cheaper solution to increase our capacity for our sewer system. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My caveat to that will be, because it needs to come up and they know because I've talked with them about it, is we should be addressing that for a couple of reasons. I know we're talking about it right now for capacity, and that's important. But the other reason is whatever stormwater is getting in that system is going straight to our treatment plant, which means we're treating stormwater, which does not need to be treated, has a cost attached to it. And so the other reason to be doing this is certainly to increase capacity, certainly to decrease overflows, as was talked about at manhole locations, but it's also to get the stormwater out of our system so that we're not treating it just because of the expense associated. And it's using up capacity at the plant that someday we may need. So.
Commissioner Thornton.
Two questions. What is the life span of these pipes, Hollis?
Depending on what is put down them, anywhere from 25 to 50 years.
Okay.
What we're putting in now is 50 years.
Okay, so I guess I'm going back to Commissioner Culpepper's question about coding. Are we coding pipes that have probably just needs to be replaced, or when do we code?
We start coding them when we find issues like this with capacity issues. We can draw $200,000-300,000.
So you're not going by the actual year?
No. You got to look at the coating of the pipe itself. We got some coatings that don't exist really in some areas.
Commissioner Thornton, Public Utilities has some lovely camera footage
Yeah.
of lines that they viewed from the interior.
Oh,
You can see
God,
all
that
kinds of
sounds
fun
like
stuff
a
in there.
that sounds like a treat day.
Hollis, you may want to provide
That
some of
sounds
that
like
to the
a
commissioner.
treat day. I bet y'all gonna change these retreats and give us more this kind of information.
It'll just be video presentation.
Oh, okay. But now, Hollis, tell me, Public Works is an enterprise, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How much money do you have in your enterprise?
We can certainly get the
the
budget,
total.
and that'll be a big part of this.
I can see right now, we don't want this to be public. Send me an email.
It is public, it's in the budget.
It is in the budget.
Send me an email. Okay, okay, she said Section E.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's in the
we'll,
budget.
we'll remind everyone. And in there, you'll see what the revenues are. And again, you'll also be able to discern what goes toward operations and what goes toward capital with it. But
Thank you, though. Boy, you feel like you don't hardly come. You say, I ain't coming back no more. No, thank you, seriously.
Appreciate everybody's input. I think everybody's learned a lot here in the conversation tonight. You know, what I would note, I think both for members of the commission and for the public, is that oftentimes there's a neighboring property that's been in some state of affairs based on something constructed in 1960 or 70 or 80. And in most cases, that's really not the limit of what could be on that property. And of course, in this case, you've got a CG zone. And so combining what we know about what's available in zoning, so 65 feet of height, 10-foot buffer from a residential neighbor, and also knowing about what's going on in our economic development space, among the things that we're seeing growth in are things like medical providers, so that's an enormous growth in our employment base, and even hotels. We've recognized that we've got this several hundred-room hotel deficit. So the by right conversation has come up tonight, but combining both what's allowed by zoning code and what we know is currently really very marketable in the community. The two towers, for example, could be a hotel that somebody could pull a permit on tomorrow, or could be a medical building that somebody could pull a permit on tomorrow. So I think it's important to recognize that in this conversation, certainly recognize, the very rational notion of change in the view shed and the experience you have as a neighbor, but that's part of what we will be experiencing more of in the years and the decades ahead. And so it's important just to recognize that as we look ourselves in the mirror. Appreciate everybody's conversation. We are going to move on to item 7. I know Commissioners Myers and Fisher, you've submitted a commission-defined option for this. I don't know if Commissioner Myers, you just want to kind of outline that, and then we can pursue the discussion that follows.
Yeah, Commissioner Fisher and I submitted a draft of a CDO that's linked to on the agenda tonight, that it is a draft to provide 100% of the connection fees for the wastewater for the mental health roof. That's a theme this tonight, isn't it? For the Advantage Mental Health Recovery Facility being built off of Mitchell Bridge Road. The Attorney's Office is still working on developing the needed ordinance language that'll be inserted into the final CDO that we'll be voting on in January. I think it's just, that we changed our ordinance about the contribution level about a year and a half ago, when we had a development that required, I think it was up to $800,000 for the full payment of for that waiver. This one would put it up to, I think it puts it up at 100% to like 140,000. I don't have the right number in front of me. 147,000. But this is a SPLOST project that's been talked a lot about. It's permanent supportive housing. There'll be a lot of our folks who are some homeless, some with mental health and addiction issues that we've talked about it as a community. I've been impressed that Advantage Behavioral Health has already sort of value engineered or reduced the cost by $1 million. But the overall cost of the project has gone from 11 million to 21. They've gone and tweaked some things so you can still get the same quality project, but are saving $1 million. So this is just it's a little bit more to help them with this much-needed project.
Anything further, Commissioner Fisher?
Just a little bit, and thank Commissioner Myers for drafting this CDO, and again, we'll get the ordinance in January. Do want to add, it will be adding 60 more beds to that particular campus for people with mental health issues and substance abuse. And we went back and forth, because I know we do some of these 100% water and waste connection fees when we do economic development. But because of some of the value engineering that went into this and some of the things that Advantage was trying to do to get this done, we thought it'd be, worthwhile to get this done and get this facility built, really try to help people in the community who's dealing with addiction and mental health issues. So I do support it, and of course it is in my district, and I do support us moving forward with this, and I hope my colleagues will do the same.
Anything further?
Can we put it on consent?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, we don't have the final ordinance.
Yeah, we got to wait till the ordinance.
I think Commissioner Johnson wishes to leave it off, so we'll leave this on discussion. Yeah. Anything else?
I was just going to add, this is a separate and apart, but just sort of a preview into a sort of a budget discussion that will accompany this kind of request. So there, a couple of commissioners have asked in previous waivers, sort of what are the implications to the enterprise fund that we just mentioned. And so part of what we'll be talking about as we go further into budget discussions are how do we do these kinds of things, which are important, and yet not compromise the work that needs to be done inside utilities. So just kind of file that away,
Right.
that we'll have that conversation, because I know a couple of you have asked that question when some of these have come up before. So.
All right, moving on to new business. Item 8 is our transit service comprehensive plan. We use an agency to help us do that, because of course we're not doing that every year. So much like the service delivery plan that we just discussed for public utilities, we have a long-term plan for public transit as well. And this will look both at kind of routing and costing. So anything on this one?
Consent.
Yeah.
And this will include a discussion of the of fares, so that will be a part of what goes into this piece of it. So.
All right, everybody okay with 8 on consent?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll move 8 to consent. All right, number 9 is item that pursued the process that this body developed for naming of public facilities. And so this is naming of the East Broad Bridge over the North Oconee River as Weaver D's Bridge, automatic for the people, in the full title there. So Commissioner Davenport.
Off consent. Nothing against, I've spoken with Commissioner Weaver D. So about 2 years ago, Barbara Barnett came to us, and she's doing a petition to name that bridge after her mother. Back before urban renewal, she petitioned to have that bridge so black people can cross and go to cross the river to get into downtown and go to the market. I know Weaver, I know he's upset, a little upset, but I did speak with him about a few months ago and asked him to collaborate with Barbara Barnett to rename that bridge after Jesse Barnett, who petitioned for that bridge to be there. And maybe we can work something out on a name change on the road or something. But I would like to put this off consent and potentially put it on hold in January.
Just a note of infrastructure as it exists now, there are 2 separate bridges, and so, if there should be some desire for 2 separate namings, we got 2 things that we could name that are right next to one another. There's a bridge that's part of the Greenway network, as well as the Vehicular Bridge.
Yeah.
So just that's what we've got. Commissioner Johnson.
Before the next meeting, we make any decisions. I do recall several years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years, where the Leisure Services Department then presented a process and a policy for renaming. And I would like to have that discussion about how it came to be, who made the recommendation, who I mean, it's more than just us, but I would just like to know more about that process. Did it go through the process?
But
Stuff like that.
Madam Clerk, or maybe somebody from the manager's office, could we pull up that agenda report and just make sure Commissioner Johnson has that that way? And it'll give you the kind of
Well, I
facts
have
and
it.
issues in history.
I just think it needs to be, like the history of the process, the policy. I don't, included in the new stuff.
Yeah, we can pull
You
up.
get what I'm saying?
From when the agenda report
Like, this is the
came to
process.
develop that process.
Right.
It has the history and the minutes from those
Yes.
committee meetings.
So it
that
doesn't
created that
look
policy.
personal or favoritism.
Yeah.
Like we have a process in place.
We do.
Commissioner, are you asking how this particular request went through or the overall policy?
So just generally, I think it should be
Got it,
combined,
got
it's
it.
folded in with the narrative.
Okay, all right,
To
thank you.
explain, like, so it doesn't look like a favoritism.
So just rolling it into the description of, in the
It's based on
agenda?
a process and a policy that had been approved in the past.
Got it, thank you.
That's right, and that's important for everybody to know that this has followed that standard process that's utilized commonly. Got Commissioner
you.
Lincoln Thornton.
Yeah, I remember being on that committee that came up with that naming policy, and one segment of that policy was that we would not rename something after someone who was still living. There was a certain number of years, and I think we did end up reducing the number of years. I'm wondering if anybody has any insight into that aspect.
So there
of the
are two
policy.
separate policies. There is one for leisure services
Okay.
facilities, and there's another for roadways.
And the public infrastructure portion of it does not have a deceased clause.
That's right.
Okay.
And I would, I guess I will speak now, and I would assume for this to make the agenda, the signatures that were required, I assume that those are in order, because I know there's so many, I don't know how many signatures, but I do know that Barbara Barnett was trying to get signatures at an event I was at recently. But I know that this application has been in, but I'm just trying to say the signatures were a crucial piece. I'm assuming that the signatures that are needed.
And we'll have to go back and verify. And actually also noticed that the policy that was being referenced was listed as an attachment, but does not appear to be an attachment. So,
Okay.
Thank
so now
you.
I understand. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, leave this on discussion. All right, item 10 is amendment to the collective bargaining agreement and implementation of the fire classification and compensation study. And so the way that this modification would work, we would fund the first half fiscal year with this agenda item, creating a sort of new classification system, and starting salary and in fact, midpoint and high salary for each of these categories.
Can you put this on consent?
I would.
Yes. Everybody okay with consent?
I'm
Yes.
consenting.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Going 10 to consent. All right. Item 11 is the right-of-way use ad hoc committee report. The committee is still meeting and going to be, I think, looking at an additional recommendation, but this ordinance change is their first recommendation, and this effectively pursues the diversity of opinion that sometimes you would get from people in public safety about what it means to have a clear right-of-way where you can pass unobstructed. And this makes explicit that the full breadth of the right-of-way from one private property on the east to another private property on the west is a place for people to move their feet, move their bikes, move their vehicles, but not a place to sit and lie upon that surface. So Commissioners Davenport and Myers and Fisher, I very much appreciate your work on this. Any of you have any comments that you'd like to make at this point?
Can one of y'all give a positive comment first before I give my negative?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Commissioner Myers?
Oh, yeah, positive? Okay, yeah, I just want to, really to summarize this, it expands and clarifies a lot of instances of public right-of-way so that it's clear it's not just a sidewalk, and you can read it. It goes on in great detail for that. The other thing is that I think before, and I was trying to find the right wording here, maybe one of my fellow members can find it, but it was before it had to be a real clear interference, where now it's an what's the?
We changed the word
What is it?
obstruction.
It's an obstruction, right. And so those, which gives the police officers a little leeway, but I do want to repeat that there's a warning for a first offense. So no one is going to be like pulled up off the street and, cited for this. There's always a first offense. I will follow that up by saying that this is voting on the ordinance. We had a meeting yesterday in which the Athens Homeless Coalition talked about a locker program for homeless folks downtown, a pilot program somewhere at some location to be figured out. The Homeless Coalition is going to put together a committee here. Members of the committee here, our commissioners, talked about the need or the desire for this not to be a ongoing ACC full responsibility, but real cooperative venture between the government and nonprofits and faith-based communities as well, so that people have an opportunity to put their stuff somewhere so it's not interfering with everyone else, but also so it gives them access to do what they need to do, take care of appointments, take care of any issues they have without having to lug and keep an eye on their belongings. And so that's something we expect to get back, something from the Homeless Coalition about the beginning of February on that.
One other ordinance change was the 24 hours versus 96
Oh, yeah.
hours for abandonment.
Oh, thank you, yes.
What was that?
The 24 hours?
One other proposed ordinance language change was that currently the ordinance defines abandoned personal property as personal property that's been left unattended in the right-of-way for 96 hours. And the committee heard some feedback from the Homeless Coalition, which did some conversations with people experiencing homelessness in downtown. And they stated that if they were not nearby or not close enough to see their items, then they didn't need them anymore. And so the discussion was along the lines of, after 24 hours, if someone is not next to their items or within eye shot, I guess would be the vision line of sight of their property, then they've abandoned it.
Yeah, and I think we should put special thanks to the Homeless Coalition and Mike
Moss
on the Homeless Coalition for sharing that, like the lived experience and being the connection with people who are on the street to help really get their perspective into what we discussed. So I appreciate that very much.
Commissioner Davenport, do you want to follow up?
Yes. So I'm gonna be a hypocrite here. So I'm gonna say it like it is. But so we started this process to talk about obstruction. People are obstructing the sidewalks, and I thank the mayor and my colleagues for working together. And I did help craft this thing. It just it seemed like just my conscience this is mainly just for homeless people, and we're criminalizing essentially. I mean, we're essentially criminalizing homeless people, and the best way to solve homelessness is through services. And I will be supporting this. I just wanted to say that we have a real issue in this community, and this ordinance is going to help, but it's going to help, I think, in a more negative way, where we're potentially going to be putting more homeless people in much more dire straits than providing them wraparound services or homes. But I do want to say that departments currently have, if there are debris or there are items left out, they can take those items now, or if they feel that let's say somebody has a whole bunch of bags on the transit bus. So transit could take those items. They don't have to necessarily wait 24 hours. They can take those items and dispose of them or handle those differently. So I do want to mention that, but it troubles me. I just feel slippery slope, but I do want to thank my colleagues and staff and everybody who worked really hard on it. It's a good policy, but housing and wraparound services are what's needed. And I want to, I'm just gonna mention something real quick. I want to challenge y'all to do, I do this every now and then, there's no swipe at anybody, but just to drive up 30 miles outside of Athens, up 72, 129, east and west on 78 to other towns. And I want y'all to look in the bushes, look on the side of the road, go to their grocery stores, and see if you notice any homeless people. So just, we're footing the bill for this, but just want to mention that. I'm done.
So yeah, I think Commissioner Davenport touches on some of my concerns about, the slippery slope towards criminalizing homelessness in a time when we're only going to see more homeless people due to the federal government's, abject unconsideration of people in poverty, and the rising cost of housing, the continually rising cost of housing due to multiple factors in our community and nationally. If we're going to pass this, which I agree, something like this is needed. There occasionally are situations where items or even people pose, some obstruction to the right of way and potential dangerous conditions, and definitely, there are concerns from business people, regarding access to their establishments. If we're going to pass this, I'd like to see some commitment towards finding some solutions, like maybe we can ask staff to identify logical locations for lockers, and we can then maybe in the budget determine how to acquire those kind of lockers, or how, consult with the Homeless Coalition on how a program like that would work. I'd like us to make some positive next steps on accommodating these folks instead of just outlawing their behaviors.
Got Commissioner Fisher and back to Myers.
Yeah, and to Commissioner Lanks, some of your questions that you asked, we did have those conversations with Homeless Coalition about how we get this done and stuff. And I think one of the things we talked about though when we had these meetings was not to criminalize our homeless population. But I can tell you, I've been visiting businesses downtown, and you all need to go in and talk with some of those people who own those establishments. You got people right there in that door, and they can't, and they either won't move or they call the police because of what we got now. Because it's public, the sidewalk is public property, but it's not fair to those landowners. I'm sorry, those business owners downtown. They have people camp down in front of their establishment. All of us own homes. We won't want anybody to camp out in front of our house. So I think we need to show them the same type of courtesy when we're looking at it. But one thing we did, we stressed it a lot, though. That's why we had the police officers in there. We had the solicitor in there. We talked about not criminalizing those individuals. Like I said, we'll give warning, but we can't keep going down this road where downtown, where people literally sleeping in front of people's businesses, and it affects their livelihood. And it's not fair to those individuals. As for with the lockers and stuff, again, one thing we talked about, we did not want this to be an ACCGov finance, that we finance this deal. We talk about bringing our faith-based communities, maybe our business community who may want to take part in this, but that's not something, me personally, where we got a line item where we're buying lockers. Because I think, and one of the things I did mention yesterday, we have a bunch of warehouses here that doesn't get used. That possibly can be some options where people can put their belongings. But I don't want us to get into the business where there's a line item where we're footing that bill.
Got Commissioner Thornton and Commissioner Myers.
I'm glad that Commissioner Fisher brought up the financing. Again, I listened to Commissioner Myers said it was a partnership, and she said between the nonprofits and the government and
In developing the project, yeah.
But most of the nonprofits we fund. So it's not really, so I would be interested in February on what a budget would look like and the options that they're going to come from. because, again, I don't want to criminalize anybody. I know Ricky Chastain would be happy about this, but I don't want to penalize anybody. But I don't know, maybe because I've gotten older, I'm really getting a stickler about money. And, you know, when you want to fix income, you be trying to cash every dime. So I'm going to go back to the email I sent you guys about some money that I really felt was not being handled properly. And this is an example of how money can be used instead of a survey. So I am going to be anxious. I'm going to support this for Ricky Chastain, and but I'm this part. But the lockers, I would like to know more detail about budget and where they're going to be located, and who's going to actually pay for it. What kind of budget we're going to see with that.
And that, of course, would be part of a future agenda item.
Yes, sir.
Or potentially just a report, you know, if the government has really no role in that, you know, but certainly I appreciate the committee having engaged so thoroughly with sort of every constituent member, including the Homeless Coalition themselves. So, Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, I want to clarify for anyone listening to this as well, and for my colleagues, that we are not making new ordinances. We are revising existing ordinances. There already is an ordinance about obstructing the right-of-way, and this just changes to interfering with the right-of-way to sort of help a little bit more with our police officers and everyone, that this is not there's a warning first as well. So a lot of this is not a new, I would say it's not a new criminalization, and in fact, some people might feel that it is really not doing anything significantly different than what we have now. So I don't want the public or my colleagues to be misled into thinking that we are putting into place ordinance that is, you know, radically different from anything we have now. This is a fine-tuning of the language in here, mostly. And in terms of the locker program, you know, my use of the word, what was the word you were pointing out? The coordination. You know, some of that was, I think there might be someone from staff listening, but one of the things I really emphasized was that I think this is the kind of project that would be perfect for our faith communities who are wanting to make a difference. And, you know, if anything, I mean, I would not be against a nominal token contribution to the start-up of this, but I really am putting the word token in that I think that there's a lot of people in this community who are concerned about homelessness, concerned about what's going on now with the weather and such. There are tons of faith communities. This seems like the perfect thing that I was raised in my Catholic church years, Catholic school years, to do unto others and to help the poor and the needy. So I'm hoping that the community as a whole could really take the leadership in any kind of financing of a program like this. And we do have some documents, and I'll share them. We'll make sure we get them and share them with the rest of the commission.
Commissioner Davenport?
Yeah, I would disagree with that assessment, but I appreciate the comment. But like the people who, you know, depending on if you are concerned or bothered by it, but I get the downtown businesses, you know, no one should be sleeping in front of people's doors. But essentially, if you're on the sidewalk at the block now, hanging out, talking, chilling, you would be considered interfering in the right-of-way of that sidewalk. The people at the library who hang out in the front, if I'm wrong, because I see some head shaking, people who hang out at the front of the library, you know, Baxter Street Library, you know, their artwork in the front, they would be considered interfering in the right-of-way. So those harmless activities where people are just gathering, socializing, would be considered wrong.
Okay.
I do want to note that if you read the text that's in front of you, that there are exemptions that include sitting on a bench, for example, and so there are plenty of opportunities for people
Yes.
to sit, in the sort of casual and transitory way that we all do at times, and that really, if you're thinking about the sort of human behavior, that's most sort of thoroughly identified as something that we wouldn't want, it would be that lying or kind of sitting upon either the pavement or the asphalt. So, so some discernment there, and certainly, regarding your earlier comments, Commissioner Davenport, I couldn't agree more about the need to do a breadth of things. I think all of us recognize that the reason that you have a toolbox is because you need a lot of tools in it, and those include, I would hope, additional funding in the years ahead, some additional wraparound services, and most of all, housing, as we have learned nationally, that those communities that are most housing challenged are also those communities that see the greatest propensity of homelessness. So couldn't agree with you more on that front. So got Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I did notice that clause about sitting on chairs and benches. I'm wondering if maybe we could fine tune that to include knee walls or retaining walls. And also, to commit to maybe providing more benches. We don't have benches along Prince Avenue, except where we have bus stops, in West Broad Street and places on the east side. The only place we really have benches is downtown, which is probably part of the reason that more homeless people congregate downtown, because there are places for them to sit and chill. But a lot of people are coming and going to services up North Avenue and down Prince Avenue. So maybe as a community, we need to commit to more places for people to sit, including regular, normal people. I mean, I'd like to take a little seat once in a while on my mile-and-a-half walk downtown. Folks with small children who are walking often need to sit down and get their kid together. So I think we should commit to, providing more public seating outside of the immediate downtown area.
Got Commissioner Fisher's only spoken once, so I'm going to call on him and then Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, just want to clarify something the Commissioner Lake. One thing we looked at when we started talking about we really was thinking about the bus stops. We have people congregate at our bus stops a lot. We've got more, all of us got pictures and stuff of people congregating at bus stops. So that's one of the reasons this part with the benches came into play, because people were congregating at the bus stop. I do, one thing I'm going to do next week, and I will ask any of my colleagues if they want to, I'm going to ride the bus for the next 2 weeks, all over Athens. And just get a feel, because again, we've been getting pictures, we've been getting emails about people congregating. So I want to, get a bird's eye view myself and just take a look at what that looks like and what our riders, some of their experience. I'm gonna be incognito. I have a baseball cap or whatever. But I want to just make sure that that the community overall feel comfortable getting on the bus and taking out transit. So that's something I talked to Bob about it and reached out to Vic. So on next Tuesday, I'm gonna start my first track of riding buses around town. So
I know we don't charge riders anymore, but when you see that guy, Vic, just, make sure he gets special costs.
Special costs.
All right, Commissioner Myers.
One last point here. No one from this ordinance is going to get a citation for hanging out in front of a store talking to their friends, whether that's downtown with UGA students or men, women on the block. I want to just read this out loud. This is interference with ingress or egress. It just means going in or out of a building. Well, shall mean storing personal property, standing, sitting, lying down, using property, or performing other activity where such activity materially interferes with the ingress or egress from the buildings or any other real property that has a limited number of entrances. So this is not like this is not an ordinance to give citations to people who are hanging out downtown or anywhere around this. So this was language that the solicitor and the police department looked at very carefully. I do not want anyone to get the impression that this is going, you'd have to work really hard. I mean, and we put all sorts of exceptions in here, because I was like, man, when I'm like, sitting over there on Barnett Shoals, waving a sign that says, "Go vote," am I going to be, is this going to apply to me? How about people in wheelchairs? There's a whole lot of exceptions in here as well. So please, everyone, make sure to read that carefully. This is not prohibiting hanging outside. Okay.
All right, last time, Commissioner Davenport.
Yeah, so if you continue reading that paragraph, it says, unless having, okay, I concede, I'm not, but if you continue reading that, interferes with the passage along driveway, streets, sidewalks, alleys, but, okay, I'm not, anyway, it's a good ordinance, we're gonna pass it. Let's move on.
Thanks, everyone, for playing debate in City Hall.
Yes.
All right, moving on to item 12, and Auditor Hassemer is with us. This is the investigative audit of our organizational structure. So would you like to say a couple words by way of introduction?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So first, I'd like to thank our staff for their hard work, as well as the manager's office for their cooperation. This type of audit was timed purposely to provide the manager with an overview of the departments that report to him, and provides points of interest rather than traditional findings and recommendations. To his credit, the manager has been receptive, and I appreciate his willingness to consider the potential changes already. Just to review our scope a little bit, we looked at a comparison of similar jurisdictions' organizational charts. We tracked historical growth of our own government. We listed the number of departments, divisions, including key positions in totality throughout the document. And we calculated the percentage of department staff encompassing administration, supervision, and frontline positions. A few things we analyzed: span of control, for example, the height and the width of our organization, how many reporting layers there are between the frontline staff and the department director versus how many employees are supervised by each supervisor. We took a look at the centralized and decentralized model of operation. Basically, is the human resources function fully contained within the human resources department, or is it sporadic throughout other departments that then also report to and cooperate with the human resources department, as one example. We also looked at the variation in department structure amongst similarly sized departments, divisions, and how that can vary even amongst departments that are of a similar size, that there essentially is no department that is a one-size-fits-all comparison for all the others. A few stats to highlight the document. For example, the staff-to-citizen ratio, basically the number of staff per citizens in our county, is actually currently less than at unification. This is mostly due to the faster population increase of our county from that of our actual government. So it can sometimes be a misconception that the number of positions allocated with each annual budget is sometimes growing at an unconsiderable rate with the number of positions that we're creating, when in fact we're not. We're actually lower than where we were at unification in terms of a ratio. Facilities. As many of you know, we have a number of facilities that the government owns. 103 of those are actually occupied on a daily basis by staff, 20 of which serve as administrative headquarters for various departments. And they are spread out geographically throughout our entire county. BACs, there are obviously a number of BACs, 35 of which functionally are under departments in terms of liaisons that report directly to the manager's office. One of the interesting statistics that we found was that by far the number of departments that have more than one BAC that they assist with are actually the smaller departments in our government with 9 or less employees per department. They're the ones that bear the most responsibility for BAC liaisons. So those are just a few things, but happy to answer any questions you may have between now and the voting session. And, thank you.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you. And I really want to thank Gavin and his team. I want to thank the Audit Committee with Commissioner Myers and I both sit on. And if y'all get the opportunity, to my colleagues, read this, some good information, especially from a historical perspective, possible, where we might be going in the future. But there's some good stuff in here. I know probably everybody have not had the opportunity to read this yet, but over the holidays, if you get a chance, read the information when we come back in January. You may have a lot of questions then, but they did a yeoman's job putting this together, and I guess if there are some takeaways, and to Gavin's point, and actually, if somebody had told me, I would have disagreed with them without doing the audit, but we get criticized that we got too many employees, but then when we start looking at the number of people in this community, the number of employees we got, the ratio, it doesn't match. Then you look at other, what I call unified governments. We have 8 in the state of Georgia. We're sort of a little bit behind them. Now, some of the numbers are a little bit like Columbus and Richland County, Savannah, some of those are a little bit bigger populations. But when you look at our population and the number of employees we got, I think, I think what we have to look at, though, where are those employees at, and then how do we spread those up, and then what the benefits that they bring to our department. I think that's going to be critical as we move forward, and as Bob continue to get into, looking at his structure, what that's going to look like. But I just want to thank them for the job that they're doing and what they did to bring this to our attention. And again, but take a look at, if you don't read anything, read the historical perspective. I think you'll get a little bit out of that. So,
Commissioner Davenport and Link.
Yeah, thank you, Hasselmer. One of the pages, I marked it down at home, you said that we can get a copy, because from your office or the Clerk of Commission?
You can get it from our office. We'll be happy to provide.
When, this is not towards you, we had discussed a report or study on organizational, what you call it, space modernization. Is that due soon?
Yeah. Now I'm going to try to remember what Andrew had told me, because we just talked about this yesterday. So it is due soon, but it is not due immediately. How's that?
Okay.
So I think it'll come in, I believe it'll be after the budget has been decided for this upcoming year. Now, we're using some of the information already in order to make some decisions, like allocations within the courthouse and some things, but the final version of it will still come toward probably this time next year, I think is what it is.
And now a component of that obviously has to do with the courthouse and the municipal facility. We'll be having a work session in the first quarter of the year to look at that. Anything else, Commissioner Davenport?
Oh, that's it.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, Gavin, this is incredible. Thank you. I would love a hard copy of it, and I want to encourage the public to take a look at this and refer to it, especially anybody in the public who has a keen interest in local government. I feel like everybody behind this rail should be, this is like a, full resource manual for how this local government works and the history of how we got to be where we are. It's really, I'm just skimming it, and I'm learning things, just, picking up bits and pieces here. So yeah, this is really impressive, and I feel like this should be like on all our shelves at hand's reach from here on out.
Gavin, you didn't know that you'd authored a New York Times bestseller.
Wow, a how-to manual for Athens-Clarke County government.
You'll be reading about this globally before you know it. Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, right. Everyone should get this printed out, wrap it up, put it under the Christmas tree. Anyone who's running for office should print this out and look at it. Anyone who's taking that ACCGov 101 should get a copy of this. I'm just loading up these copies here. I also want to highlight the organizational charts at the end. There are many, there's one for the whole, the whole government, but there's one for each department. And included with that is a description of what the mission of the department is, what their budget is, and what their personnel compensation is, as well as some other stuff. But it really gives you an idea of the complexity of the government. I think, as I'm starting to listen to podcasts of people running for office, we all have big ideas and problems and such, but there's this government structure that is working in a very complex way and covering a lot of things that we don't think about, like all those sewer lines we talked about today. But this gives not only the history, but this description of what is actually in place right now. So, copies here. We could be making a little extra for the clerk's office here.
We got it well. Gavin, I got it right now.
Yeah.
Commissioner Thornton.
Gavin, I always send you those little emails. I told you I was going to stock. I think people are getting jealous. But in the future, and I know we are in the time of erasing DEI. I know that is. But there's two things that I'm wondering if we should be looking at, and I would love to hear. If we haven't done customer service surveys, I don't know if you guys remember when we had 2 complaints back to back about the water department. And I'm just wondering, and as I've talked to some of my constituents that have had to call different departments, there is, it's not handled very professionally. In the future, can you just put that on your list of something that we could look at and address? I'm not trying to get nobody fired. I do think that customer service should always be the pinnacle of government. Our constituents pay us and pay staff. So I do think that over the years, we've had complaints, but we've never addressed them, even when people have come and spoke before the podium. The other thing, and I guess this was my DUI introduction, about race and gender within our local government. I don't know how you word it so we don't get in trouble, but I really would like at some point for us to talk for us to know how employees are feeling in relationship, because it also goes towards who gets promoted, who gets trained. So I would be very interested somewhere down the line that we look into the work setting relationships based on race. Well, like I said, we better not use that stuff. Trump will come in and shut this whole commission down. But whatever wording you can find, because I still struggle with our disparity study. We did that before all the craziness happened, but it means something. And I don't think because what is going on in the federal government we should say, oh, we don't have to take this serious no more. We just need to find a new way to address some of those concerns that came up in our disparity study.
Any other questions for Gavin about this audit in front of us? All right.
Good job.
Appreciate it. All right. Everybody's got some reading ahead of you. I'll confess to not having read this one yet. Last item of the evening is our TSPLOST 2026 final projects list. We know, of course, we are on a timeline given the need to have this on the referendum in May for the public. We had a good conversation in the recent work session about this. Commissioner Davenport.
Off consent, work on us as a group over the Christmas holidays. Let's do emails and talk with our community members and doing a 6-year, adding $42 million to the pot so we can incorporate some of Winterville, the Greenway, and some of these other projects, including Timothy Road to the bucket. If y'all will work with me over the holidays, we can get it done by January 2nd is our meeting. But don't bother me during Christmas week though. All right.
I think that's a great idea.
Got Commissioner Fisher and then Link.
Yeah, and to Commissioner Davenport's point, I do want us to also and I think I brought this up, that, and I know we got the final say, but we may want to look at divvy up, that each commissioner gets something in their district. I like to see us take a look at that and pull some things out that each, out of 10 of us, we get something out of the TSPLOST project. Like I said, I put in 4 requests and none of them got on the list. And again, I want to thank TSPLOST committee because they did a great job. And so I'm not criticizing them, but I do, and I know, because I said most of those projects are pretty much on the east side, but I do want us to take a look at, and it may not be much money, but take a look at what are some things that each commissioner may can get in their particular district.
Got Commissioner Lincoln Myers.
Yeah, I'm concerned about some of these projects. You know, when we get to the tiering process, there are projects that fall to the end of the tier and don't get done for several years, where there's more potential to get them done more quickly using TAD funds that might be already available. So I'm interested in having that discussion, you know, taking a look at some projects that might be eligible for the East Athens and the North Athens TADs, and that might free up some funding towards some of these projects that got off the list. I'm real concerned about us not having any Greenway money on here. I don't believe District 2 really got anything. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to putting our heads together and coming up with a list that, you know, does consider some of the projects, the really important projects that got left off, and might actually, you know, enable some of these projects to get done more quickly through other funding sources.
Got Commissioners Myers and Thornton.
Yeah, after I make a few comments, I'd like to ask the manager to address some of the points that are brought up in the facts and issues about, there are a couple of projects that are mentioned as possibilities for being built with the present TSPLOST program, and then also some of the staff questions here. I love Commissioner Davenport's enthusiasm for working on this. That'll be great. I'll check in from far on my text and messages while you work on that. Well, I'm with my grandchildren, but I will, you know, I'll be back January 2nd. But I do want to say something about, like, I think the Greenway, too, is a program that there should be a little bit there in that Greenway. We've been working on that. I think also the Timothy project, which we've seen some money, is a significant amount of money has already gone into the development of that project, and it just makes sense to continue it. I would like to, you know, ask my colleagues to look at how these projects have been spread out. This is the 3rd TSPLOST program, and right now there are some projects on the east side, on Barnett Hills, College Station, and Gaines School Road in that area. But those are areas that have not had any, that area has not had any projects in the previous 2. So I think we have to be, like, careful about, I mean, I'm all for there being projects all over, but there are some, I don't want to, I guess I just want to be thoughtful about what we've already invested money in terms of geographical distribution, as well as the fact that many of these projects are projects that will affect, they're not in no one's district. They'll be in a lot of districts. When we look at the traffic signal intersection, the Vision Zero intersection plan implementation, and that might be something, if there is anything from staff, if there are any specific ideas or examples, the Safe Routes to School program. So there are a bunch of programs in here, dirt road improvement. So there's a lot in here that do not have a geographic designation, but they will actually be on the ground somewhere in some geography. So just for us to keep that in mind as well.
Commissioner Thornton.
I really do appreciate Commissioner Davenport stepping up, because I do have some concerns, and I shouldn't complain because we did pretty well for our 2023, but it's kind of what Carol Myers said, Commissioner Myers said, we had nothing in District 9. So I do not feel guilty about anything I get, but I'm willing to share. And I made a commitment in 2023 that District 9 would not support a 2026 TSPLOST until we're included. We pay the same penny like everybody else. And I think the only thing we got prior to 2023 was the extended bus line, which is definitely needed with all the growth out on 29. And I have talked to Mr. Josh Hawkins back there, so you might need to come up to the podium because my commitment is still the same. I know that the gentleman that, and I've talked to you, so I'm not, so don't worry, you'll be able to answer this question. The gentleman who was overseeing the TSPLOST projects, he's no longer with you guys. And you keep telling me things are happening. I need you to be a lot more clearer for what is happening from 2023. Matter of fact, not even clear. I need to see it. We need to see it. So hopefully, and I'm thinking about the lighting.
On Danielsville Road.
On Danielsville Road. It was something else too, but.
Traffic calming on in a couple of neighborhoods.
Yeah, and a couple of neighborhoods. I don't know what the holdup is. I don't know what the process is, but just because, and because these projects were approved, it just seems like it's taking like forever. And so if you want to explain to me why things are, I can meet you but my word is still my word, If we don't see anything other than what isn't, that's not going to be my support for 2026. We got to get something in the ground for 2023 in District 9.
Yes, ma'am. Heard.
We good?
I'll provide you an update.
Okay. Why don't you provide me some light poles or something? Okay, thank you.
Got Commissioner Johnson.
I'm not going to be long. I just wanted to say for the record, I agree with everything Commissioner Thornton stated. And when I started in office earlier this year, it was made clear to me from my constituents, there's no carrot or motivation to approve TSPLOST that doesn't affect anyone on the west side or the south side of Athens, like the periphery of the county line. We have some needs. We had a town hall. I had a town hall last week where people attended and talked about not wanting more projects and development, and we need homes, right? But they don't want that because we don't have traffic solutions. And it's not on the list. There's nothing in District 6. There is something on 2023 TSPLOST Stonehenge, but it's 2025, almost 6. And it's been approved, but I'm like Avita, I don't like feeling lost. I was in a neighborhood the other day passing out the Athens-Clarke County A to Z guide, and neighbors were asking, when are they going to take up the temporary, speed humps, and when are they going to start? I would like to have an answer, even if it's a ballpark, like second quarter, third quarter. There's so much information we don't know, and it's difficult feeling dumb out there.
Appreciate everybody's enthusiasm for getting things done and also appreciate the conversations we've had over the last few months, particularly in our retreat, where everybody has demonstrated a willingness to see process improvements, because I think that's going to benefit us all. We're going to be able to see every project happen more quickly because there's not such an extended timeline. And certainly some of that is being able to provide good information to the public too. On the question of what a 6th year provides us, if we would continue to fund pavement and transit as we've already outlined in the first 5 years, if we would do the roundabout in Winterville, we would have somewhere just north of $10 million that we could do other projects with. Graceful opportunity would be to look at that sort of Timothy and also Middle Oconee area. There are 2 significant segments of Greenway in the Greenway Network Plan along the Middle Oconee, one from Ben Burton Park down to Beach Haven, and one kind of heading northward up to Bernie Harris Lyons Middle School. We had some funds in a prior cycle that certainly aren't going to be enough to achieve that, but I hear very often from people in those corridors about their desire to have some easy opportunity outdoors. And certainly if I think about even the families and the kids who I know in this community, there are many along that corridor. So I think there could be a fairly functional, easy way to make some amendments to this where everybody would come out much happier. So here we are. It is 8:30. Commissioner Myers?
Yes, I wasn't able to give the manager a chance to respond to these items that I had asked about, what the staff were particularly interested in. And then also, I think it's really number 5 and number 6, and maybe number 5 has to do with projects that, in the facts and issues about projects that could be paid, that are on the list but could be paid for with present TSPLOST. How, maybe you could just get that information to us all.
Yeah, and I can give you
speak
that.
to it shortly. But then the other thing, there's this question of the TAD money and whether or not, maybe this is a general discussion, like, I don't have a TAD in my district, but do these projects fit within the TAD preferences that the TAD committees put in? I don't know if that's mentioned in here, like whether they fit in those or not, versus, I know like one of them wanted affordable housing. Obviously, this doesn't have to do with affordable housing. So maybe that's a discussion too that could be, maybe you could talk to that.
And is Josh still here? Yeah, so you had a meeting the other day yesterday with East Downtown TAD to look at their list on their community priority identified list and where there's some overlap with the TSPLOST that's right there now.
Josh, if you want to step to the mic, and I guess the general question is there an observed overlap between the unfunded TSPLOST projects or even the recommended ones? And what is coming out of the TAD committees around priorities?
And desire among colleagues.
So what I can say tonight is there's ongoing dialogue on a regular basis between staff on the projects that are envisioned by TADs, on the project that are envisioned by SPLOST project teams, and there are other projects within some of these geographies too. So far, we've been looking specifically at sort of Inner East and then Newton Bridge, but obviously there are other geographic areas where there's overlap as well. So. And we certainly have identified some areas where, if we're smart about it, we can apply these resources and get more done where the TAD funds are eligible and spend SPLOST dollars on other projects that might be priority in that geography. So that's kind of an ongoing dialogue about how to bring these different efforts together and use those resources well. So you're asking good questions, and what I want you to know is that staff conversation is going on.
And I will also add to that and then answer in 2 seconds the part of the question that the Commissioner asked as well. That so part of, as you all know, there's a couple companion efforts to this, which include changing the way in which we deliver capital projects that we've talked about and moving those forward. You may remember in one of the work sessions, we also talked about kind of the project selection process as well as the process we use to deliver projects, and then after projects are done, the process we use to actually take care of what it is that we've invested. One of the things that I've noticed in some of our areas is that because we have been so successful over the years in securing SPLOST and TSPLOST funds, that there are other funds, you've identified TADs, but there are others too. They may be funding through FTA for transit projects or others that we have not always been as aggressive as perhaps we need to be in pursuing those dollars to stretch these dollars further. So that's another item we'll talk about when we get into the details of kind of how to improve the process, because that's a piece I think that is also limiting a little bit what we're able to do with the dollars that we have. The 2-second or 2-minute answer to the question about there may be some things that could be funded out of the current TSPLOST that are on the list. So there is an anticipation of getting more revenue than what was anticipated from the TSPLOST 23, simply because of the way that it's being interpreted at the Department of Revenue. And if that actually proves to be valid and legally sound, meaning we have confidence that those dollars are ours to spend and available, then yes, there could be some projects moving forward. And we'll have more details about that. But that's what those items are referencing in there. So.
Commissioner Thornton.
But we're going to be anticipating voting in next month.
Yeah, yeah.
So everything that you.
And I don't know that we'll have a complete answer on that piece, because I think and I'll end up having to talk more with the attorney's office, because there has been historically some competing sort of, I don't want to say interpretations, but different views, not internally, but at the state level, of what these dollars, there's no question the dollars will come here. The question ultimately is, what can we use those dollars for?
So if we do broad categories that could capture each of our districts, are you saying then that later on down the line, if we go after these dollars, we can make some shifts?
I think what's identified in this report, and Josh, you can explain more of this, is that we believe some of the projects that have been identified in the 26 list could actually be paid for out of funds that we might receive in 23. That I think is what the item is referencing.
And particularly in some of those very broad areas like pavement or intersection improvements, you've got similar things in 23 and 26. So you might see more of those dollars flow into the 23 package, rather than be delayed for the 26 package.
And I guess one of my questions, one of the things I was thankful for what we got, but one of the things I was disappointed in extending transportation out 441 for a lot of reasons. So is there another pot of money? Does transportation have money too, or is there that is not?
For transit services, I mean, that is highly dependent on FTA funding. So it really depends on, because we take funding that we collect locally and we use it to leverage Federal Transit Authority funding. That, like so many things at the federal level, that is very much in flux. And so part of the challenge we have is we know more or less what we can do with the TSPLOST funding. A lot of it's operations and purchasing buses and those kinds of things. Service extensions in a lot of ways are going to be dependent on what FTA funding ends up being. And that will literally change year by year.
Okay.
Commissioner Culpepper.
So should we put a vote on the final list on hold until we know these different options? Because we're voting on stuff that we don't know there might be money in other places for.
We're going to get this on the referendum.
Oh, we've got a deadline.
We need the final project list pretty close to finalized by the third third Tuesday in January, which is our agenda setting meeting. We have to vote on the resolution and the IGA approving the project list no later than the our regular meeting in February. So I mean, which means, I'm thinking maybe y'all should have a work session, like y'all need to think of it, because this has got to move, y'all got to come together and get something done.
What I'd want everybody to recognize is that should the 23 package produce more dollars than originally anticipated, items on those 23 project lists are going to be able to use those dollars. We've seen cost escalation. So, for example, if you've got intersection improvements, we got a lot of intersection improvements that we could spend dollars on, which is an item on the 23 list. If you're interested in seeing dirt roads converted, we've got a lot of dirt roads that we could see converted. So we will not lose out at all should we have the accrual of additional millions of dollars devoted to the 23 package before on the calendar we begin to pursue the 26 package. I wouldn't feel the need to be worried about that. We've got Commissioner's Link.
Yeah, could staff possibly provide us in an email in one place the blurbs from the TAD committee reports that list the project preferences? So we have all in one place, or project preferences that relate to transportation that could possibly qualify for TSPLOST funds. So we have all in one place those projects that those citizen committees have already asked for to be funded with TAD funds, so we can kind of cross-reference them with this list to see if any of those projects qualify there when we're talking about reallocating funds. And I'm also kind of interested in maybe bucketizing some of these to assure that we can be flexible with those funds if other funding sources do pop up that might pay for a very specific project that's on the TSPLOST list. just to assure that we can be a little bit more flexible with the funds if we do find these other sources.
Some of the community identified priority lists are very specific, like with an intersection and a location, and some are more generic, like,
Yeah.
covered bus stops. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can send you the link, links for all 6.
I mean, yeah, if we could have, just the blurbs that specifically refer to any transportation-oriented projects that are recommended by those committees.
Commissioner Thornton?
Prioritize, I like the bucket idea. Another priority is Commissioner Fisher's idea, those districts that have did not receive TAD dollars. That should be one of our priorities. And the bucket list, putting things together that could be in any district. I think when Patrick when we all get together, we should know what and what TAD dollars are available. I think those 3 things should be spelled out. Districts that did not get any funding, TAD dollars, and creating buckets.
Mr. Myers?
Yeah, and I will repeat, ask staff for this too. If any of the departments have a list of prioritized projects that would get funding from the safe routes, the traffic signal intersection, because those things are expensive, and the replacement, I guess, from the Vision Zero. For some of those, if there are any projects that would the area's the bus stop improvement. I mean, is there a list already of just going down the list and find out where there are? Not for that one, but there might be for the intersections.
Some, I mean, and some are still in development. So, for
Yeah.
example, the Vision Zero, you might remember from the work session, there was the discussion of the high incident, high accident
Yeah.
areas and stuff that we talked about doing some pilot projects. So you can obviously kind of discern where those high accident areas are likely to turn into projects that Vision Zero would cover, and that would give you a sense of how those over time would be distributed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner Link?
So it occurred to me that we've actually, approved some funding for TSPLOST projects from the last round, but we haven't had enough funds to complete them. I'm thinking about the Barber Street project, I'm thinking about West Broad, where we, have this list of nice-to-haves, but they're probably not going to get done. I mean, do we just leave old TSPLOST projects half-done because we don't have enough funding from that bucket, or do we add them into this cycle?
You delayed Barber Street, right?
I know that. Well, we wouldn't have had the money anyways. The costs were through the roof, and the asks were super expensive. I feel like, the same thing with West Broad. There's a whole bunch of projects on there that were in the nice-to-have that aren't showing up on this TSPLOST that are never going to get done. So I feel like we should kind of go back at the old TSPLOST list and see, what were the projects that were only able to get partially done because of the cost escalation? Because remember, those came through during COVID and, when we saw this big inflation, and consider, finding funding to complete these projects instead of leaving them dangling.
That should be listed with one of the priorities.
Yeah.
And just kind of to think about what we've done recurrently, really, with SPLOST and TSPLOST programs past, it's not been unusual in one package to have a project come in dramatically under budget, the jail, for example. In other cases, we have accumulated earned interest. And so this body decides where to direct those dollars when there are extra funds. Sometimes those decisions are made, pretty soon after the initial version of the project was complete, and now we have the supplemental addition. Sometimes there is a lag. But that's not been unusual at all, for us to have continually evolving projects. And certainly, it won't be long before we're saying, well, geez, what are we going to do with those 2031 dollars? They'll be coming along before you know it. Commissioner Thornton.
I guess the whole idea is to be able to promote and get voters to support 2026 TSPLOST, and I really don't know which ones have been completed. For some locations where TSPLOST dollars were used to do something, could we do signage that says this is where your TSPLOST dollars, blah, blah, blah? I see that in other places so folk can see where their dollars are.
They're there.
We already got them up?
We have signs that say.
Where are they?
Funded by SPLOST, funded by.
There's one in front of the Linden House, for example, a couple blocks from here.
You got to get out in the neighborhood. I mean, you got to get out in the neighborhood.
We have been taking up some that are very old, some that are so old that they're faded or,
No, I'm
some from
talking
old
about
projects.
in our last 2023 TSPLOST.
Where projects have been completed, there are signs saying this is how it was funded.
Send me where they are so we can let somebody know, and let's get some more up.
All right, everyone. Thanks for the conversation. All right, there's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
All right, everybody, please have a wonderful holiday. Thank you for this year.
Or intersection.